What's going on, fellow A-plussers? It's your host, Adam Perez, back once again for a brand new live episode of A-Plus Hero Report, going live over on our YouTube page, as well as Facebook for you guys, and Twitch for you gamers out there. Thank you for joining us for another episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC, television, and movie news, as we have a ton of goodness to certainly get into today. We got some honorable mentions at the top, some topics that didn't quite make the cut, but certainly felt you were deserving to certainly know about it. We got 5 main topics for you guys today. And of course, we'll be rounding out our show with your live viewer questions. So thank you, everybody who's certainly joining us from whichever part of the internet you certainly are in today. And check this out. If you are listening to us via just audio only on our Spotify channel, thank you so much, guys, for certainly checking us out there, as all of our episodes that we post on YouTube will be broken down into audio and video form on Spotify for you guys to check out after this show wraps up. So, and if you want to go ahead and follow us on Spotify, there is a link to all of our social medias and Spotify connections in the comment section box below, guys. So thank you very much for joining us today. Another wonderful Sunday here in good old Fort Worth, Texas. The weather is finally getting a lot better. We had a massive ice storm, I would say, in the middle of the week here, kind of kept everybody in for like 2-3 days, if you will, just absolutely freezing around here. But the weather's looking great. People are outside once again, don't have to wear a jacket. It's a good day anytime we get some good weather around here. But it's not just myself. We've got ourselves a full show, but we are going to be joined by none other than our other nerd from the other side of the multiverse, good old Stuart Branscombe. Good to see you, buddy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm good. I know you.
Great weather.
I know you missed me last week, man. I missed you, bro. Just sitting here doing this solo dolo yesterday, or last week, I should say. So it's good to have you back, Stuart.
Yeah, good to be back. Honestly, I totally forgot I was gone last week, but yeah, I had a wedding down in LA that I went to. Pretty fun time.
Nice.
But I did get to listen to parts of the podcast, like during the long drive back up.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you for tuning in, bro. I love me some weddings, especially the reception. Like, I am the reception guy. Like, don't get me wrong, I love seeing a beautiful bride and groom saying their vows. Oh, so sweet. Where's the music? Where's the music? Yeah. Where's the food? Where's the booze? I'm a reception guy.
Where's the music? Where's the booze?
Do they have one at a reception at the wedding you went to?
Oh yeah, definitely. A lot of fun, a lot of dancing and everything like that. Yeah, just an overall pretty fun time.
Some other news for people to pay attention to. We also got approved for WonderCon press passes.
Yeah, we did.
Which I thought was pretty exciting. You know, maybe a month or two ago, I went on to their website and I had to apply for press registration. And they said, you know, if you're going to apply for this, you're applying for WonderCon and San Diego Comic-Con. And in my head, I'm thinking, God, there's no way I can go to both. But I guess I'll apply for it anyway. So I am thankful when they got back to me for WonderCon, at least saying, hey, your press registration's been approved, sort of thing. I was glad that they allowed me to assign my passes to other people. So, Stuart, you're up on deck once again, man. You did a wonderful job covering the Power Ranger Morphicon for us. And you, along with your girlfriend, will be covering WonderCon 2023 this upcoming March. So I'm really glad that we got accepted, bro. I'm really glad.
I'm really hoping Kevin Smith comes to this WonderCon again, because there was like a weird thing. I don't know if WonderCon took like offense to this last year, but basically Kevin Smith had his own like panel at WonderCon last year, and on their social media, it was titled Kevin Smith. Like, I can't remember how exactly it was worded, but it was like worded something like Kevin Smith takes over WonderCon or just something. But he basically retweeted it saying, takes over what? I was just doing a panel. This is a weird thing to say to someone who was an invited guest. And then and then like, I want to say maybe like a couple hours later, he realized, wait, no, there's something familiar about this. And he realized that it was the description that he gave to WonderCon when he applied for it. And so he's like, oh, never mind, I found out who it was. So assuming that WonderCon, was willing to just like, accept that apology, kind of. Hopefully he comes back this year.
Yeah, hopefully he certainly does, man. I've never been to WonderCon before. I don't really know the news and the information and the kind of goodness that comes out of WonderCon, so it should be pretty interesting to see what panels we're able to record. Hopefully, some interviews and just some great live footage from the showroom floor. So hopefully, we get some great content. But yeah, so in March we should have some coverage for WonderCon 2023, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they also get back to me for San Diego Comic-Con, because I
Ooh,
personally
yes.
really love to attend and have a reason to certainly go. So we'll definitely keep you guys posted. Let's give some people some shout outs, Stuart, because we got 7 to 8 people in our live chat today certainly joining us. And listen, if you're coming by into the live chat to say what's up, just a favor, before you leave, hit that like button, guys. It literally takes 1 second out of your life. It takes more time to type your message than it does to hit that like button. So please smash that like button for us. Good old Adam Perea certainly in the house, followed by Roberto Buena certainly joining us. The most talented man in the world is certainly here with us as well. We got Nicole Robertson certainly joining us. Enrique Perez is certainly here also. He says, hey, Adam, all the movies, including Avatar, The Way of Water, Black Adam, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Pixar's Lightyear, have been nominated for 2023 Kids' Choice Awards, which airs March 4th. Okay, that's pretty interesting. That's an interesting group of films. I think Avatar or maybe even Sonic 2 might be the favorite in those. Enrique says also Super Bowl is almost here. Going to be plenty of trailers, movie trailers. We got Francois certainly in the house. Good old Ram Jam is joining us today. Blossom is here. We got AJ in the house. Good old Dino Knights Fight for Your Rights. Marcelino Vasquez is certainly here. And of course, good old Ditilla certainly joining us as well, guys. So thank you for all the love and support that you guys are certainly showing here. And speaking of the Super Bowl, Stuart, from Enrique, who wanted to let us know that, I guess that's probably where we should maybe start our honorable mentions today, because we do have a list of of movie trailers that are actually going to be dropping at the Super Bowl, and it actually it feels a little overwhelming, Stuart. I'm not going to lie. I feel like there's probably more movie trailers than there are commercials going to be happening at the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm certainly not complaining because I do love me some great movie trailers. But are there any in particular that you're really looking forward to?
I mean, I got to go with the obvious one, Flashpoint, or I guess now it's just called The Flash, but yeah.
Yeah, they got The Flash that's going to be dropping a trailer. You got Ant-Man and the Wasp that's going to be dropping a trailer also. Let's see here. What else they got? You're probably going to get ourselves a Fast X from Universal as well to certainly look forward to. I wouldn't be surprised if we also get a Super Mario Brothers trailer. I think one of your most anticipated movies, Cocaine Bear, might get a quick little 15-second pregame spot. I think they're talking about. And Stuart, can I be honest with you? I feel like the more I see of Cocaine Bear, the more actually hyped I get for it. And I'm like, I see why Stuart picked this movie.
Yeah, it's Jaws with a bear on cocaine. What could be more exciting than that?
Exactly, man. We also got I'm sure there's probably going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 there. Disney's also talking about maybe The Little Mermaid, Pixar's Elemental, and possibly Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, along with Marvel Studios' The Marvels. And it says no spot for Disney's Secret Invasion are expected. So, and I mean, that's just a little bit. I mean, we might even be seeing Scream 6. Paramount might be dishing out one for Dungeons and Dragons. Also Transformers, Rise of the Beasts. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one especially.
I feel like the two big ones that you would want to have for Super Bowl are Transformers and Fast and Furious. I feel like that's the type of crowd you want to really like reach out to for those kind of movies.
And it'll be interesting to see how long some of these trailers are. I mean, I think some of them are talking about maybe just 30-second spots as of right now, which would also lead you into, hey, go online, watch the full trailer. You know, like they may have an either longer or extended trailer online at some point in time on Super Bowl evening. So it also says that Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna
Oh,
say?
I was just gonna say, yeah, most of the time when it comes to the Super Bowl trailers, I usually kind of more look forward to when they get posted online afterwards because it's usually like a rough, like 30-second cut of what's usually like kind of a
Right.
45-second or minute long trailer.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's exactly what we can probably expect for some of these trailers. Maybe not all of them, but the list just continues to grow, guys. So it does feel like there's going to be more movie trailers and actual commercials. But with a box office for last year, it says with this year's domestic box office expected to rise $9 billion. All the major studios have a reason to be dropping ad spots at the Super Bowl. So yeah, look for some ad spots at the Super Bowl and then maybe a full trailer or a little bit of a longer trailer online. But it says that people are ponying up a record $7 million just for a 30-second spot, Stuart.
Yeah.
$7 million. And then you imagine Disney's got like, oh, we got 10 of these movies we want to showcase. I can't even imagine dropping $70 million just for some commercials. That's an exorbitant amount of money, bro.
Oh man, I look forward to maybe not next year, but the year after's Super Bowl because you know for a fact that's when DC is really going to be dominating with the trailers.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of good stuff to certainly be looking forward to. But you guys, let us know. Is there any particular trailer that you are looking forward to? What's up, Keita? Appreciate it. The Marvels maybe is what she says as far as like us getting a trailer. Yeah, I think that's what the article stated. That's definitely a maybe as of right now for the Marvels.
Do we know this is true? Like, are they not going to be using real stunts in the new Indiana Jones movie?
Some people are not excited for Indy because the new will use CGI and won't feel real compared. I don't know. I mean, I always felt like when it comes to Indiana Jones films, they always try and make the stunts as realistic as possible. I mean, you know, I see like clearly from the trailer they've got the shot of Harrison Ford on the horse in the subway, right? And then
Mhm.
it dives out of the way just in the nick of time. Clearly that's CGI. But I'm sure there are probably some action sequences and stunts that are not CGI. I'm not expecting them all to be. I don't think that they're all Harrison Ford. They're
Oh
probably a
yeah,
stunt
no.
double. I'm sure there's his stunt double in some of them, but I think it's probably a nice little mixture. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I figured the dude can survive a plane crash. He can do a couple stunts here and there.
Right? Yeah, yeah. He's a lot more durable than I think we give him credit for, even in his old age. Couple other honorable mentions for you guys. Star Wars Visions. There's a volume 2 headed our way, guys. On May 4th, we will in fact be getting 9 new animated shorts for a season 2 of Star Wars Visions. So on Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you. You
Yeah.
definitely will be having some new Star Wars content to enjoy. What did you think about the first volume of Star Wars Visions, Stuart?
I really enjoyed a majority of them. There were a couple. There was actually one in particular, the one that took place like in the far, far future, where I thought like the setup was so cool. I almost like want a trilogy of movies like in that world. I yeah. So like some were definitely better than the others, but I think as a whole, like Star Wars Visions was just really incredible. It reminded me of. Did you ever read what were those comics called? The Dark Horse Star Wars Tales?
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
They kind of felt like a modern version of Star Wars Tales, where like
That's a good comparison.
some stories could technically fit into continuity, but they were never really meant to actually like be canon. They were just meant to be like fun new looks into the Star Wars universe.
And there are some of these Star Wars visions that I'm like, can this please be canon? Because this is
Yeah.
incredible stuff. But yeah, I love the idea of just the storytelling that they certainly provide. I think it's just cool that they allow other directors and other studios to just have fun in this sandbox that is the Star Wars universe. A lot of these people were influenced by it. It's what got them into the industry, certainly in the first place, growing up as a kid. So the idea that they get to fulfill their vision of playing with Star Wars characters and creating their own within this universe, I really enjoy just the boldness that some of these stories certainly take. And I can't wait to see what they have in store for volume 2. I'm really glad that volume 1 was so successful that people wanted to see more. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Something I also love in the very first episode. So I'm sure like most of you kind of probably know this already, but like Kira Kurosawa, sorry if I butchered his name. Basically he was like a huge influence like when it came to Star Wars. So I love the fact that the very first short we get from Star Wars Visions is very much in the style of a Kira Kurosawa Kira Kurosawa movie, but like now using Star Wars characters, so it all kind of comes full circle.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Absolutely does. And then last but not least, in regard, so again, May 4th, guys, May 4th, Star Wars Visions Volume 2. And then last but not least, just some quick rapid fire things for you guys. The Pennyworth series that followed Alfred on the Stars channel canceled after its third season. It will be coming to an end there. So if you guys did check out the Pennyworth season, some sad news there. I personally haven't checked it out. Stuart, have you?
No, I was honestly really surprised that it even got renewed for a third season.
A third season?
Yeah. But
I
I
mean,
am kind of
I
curious.
feel like all the things I've heard, I feel like all the things I've heard about have been pretty positive, though.
Yeah, it kind of gives me the vibe of Gotham in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think even the article I read referred to it as the Gotham prequel, even though it's definitely not connected in any way.
Mhm.
But yeah, Pennyworth after 3 seasons will in fact be ending. It just feels like they're wrapping up a lot of their loose ends at this point. You know, like they
Oh,
know they've got a lot of
maybe it
stuff
is.
upcoming. Oh, it says it's actually a prequel to Gotham. Yeah, the article I read did say a prequel to Gotham. I had never really saw it as that, but maybe yeah, maybe they mentioned that before. We also have the live action Five Nights at Freddy's movie. It has begun its production, so it's in front of cameras as of right now. What else we got? I think there was Percy Jackson and the Olympians wraps production on season 1, so they have wrapped their production. And last but not
Awesome.
least, that 90s show, Stuart, has been announced for season
Yeah.
2. We're getting ourselves a season 2 of that 90s show. You did a review for us over on our on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't had the opportunity to check it out, guys, please go ahead and do so. As Stuart certainly gives his thoughts. But are you pumped for season 2?
Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed season 1 for what it was. Did I have issues with it? Yeah. Does it have a lot of growing room? For sure. But I see like a lot of potential in this. I think like the only thing really holding it back is just it being kind of a modern sitcom. Therefore, it doesn't have the
Mm,
full 22 episodes that you would normally get, where it gives like writers so much like more, I guess, like so many more opportunities to succeed and fail. Whereas like here, when you're stuck with only 10 episodes, you got to play it a lot safer than you would be if it was a 22 episode season, unfortunately. So that's just probably the one thing that's going to be really like holding it back. But I do think like I really hope we get the show going, because I really want to see these characters grow. I really hope we get at least 5 seasons, because I want to see at the very least the start of them trying to decide what they want to do with their lives after they finish high school. So
yeah,
fingers crossed.
I think they mentioned they're going to be jumping into 1996. I think will be the year that they focus on, and I do think we're going to get more episodes. I think it's like 2 or 3 more additional episodes to the season. So certainly a lot more to definitely look forward to, guys. So let me know your thoughts in regards to season 1 of that 90s show if you had the opportunity to check it out over on Netflix. But that will in fact wrap up our honorable mentions.
Ooh, actually,
Guys,
I got one.
go ahead. Oh,
Or
go for it. Go for it.
it's technically more of a shameless plug-in, but basically, yesterday I was invited to be on a podcast called PD's Awesome Guest Panel. So we interviewed a guy named, or we interviewed Jack Guzman from Power Rangers Wild Force.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so a lot of fun. I definitely recommend checking it out. There were basically 9 of us over a Zoom call, basically
Oh, wow.
interviewing him, asking him questions. Definitely recommend it. It was a pretty fun time.
That's cool, man. Yeah, maybe on the Facebook page we'll drop the link for people to check out, or maybe after the episode, if you do have a link, we'll put maybe in the description box for you guys to check out also.
Sounds good.
Other than that, before we get into our main topics for the day, guys, if you want to go ahead and support the channel, we certainly would appreciate it. I don't know if there's a super chat feature on our YouTube live stream, but listen, if you want to go ahead and support the channel and you have a question, feel free to go ahead and throw it in the super chat. If you want to go ahead and donate to us, it will automatically allow your question to be bumped to the very top of the list to be showcased first, no matter what. And if you're also watching us over on Facebook, we just opened up our monetization option for us as a company. I think there's a stars option also. If you want to support us, donate some stars to the Facebook channel while you're certainly watching this as well, guys. So thank you, each and every one of you guys. And if you do have any live viewer questions, now is the time to certainly make sure you submit them in before we go through our topics. If you want to submit a live viewer question, it's pretty simple. Just go over to our YouTube page, click on the community tab, and there is, in fact, a post for you guys for live viewer questions. Feel free to submit them there, and we'll get to them towards the end of the video. Marcelino says, no super chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're almost there, though. We're almost there in regards to monetizing the channel. All right, guys. Stuart, are you ready to get into today's main topics?
Always.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and do this, man. This was a crazy week. If you were a comic book fan, a DC fan, a movies fan, as a lot of us have been highly anticipating the reveal of James Gunn's DCU film and TV slate. He had told us last year, guys, don't worry. By the end of January, you will know our direction and where we're going with this stuff. And he cut it in. He brought it in just in the nick of time. I'm talking like the last day of the freaking month. James Gunn reveals to us his DCU slate. So we're going to be talking about it for you guys. Maybe you've already seen the slate. Maybe you already heard countless people talk about the slate. You haven't heard us talk about the DCU slate as a team here. So we're definitely going to be getting into it for you guys today. So let's have some fun with this, Stuart, because a lot certainly happened. There's a lot certainly to be said, not only from James Gunn, but for us as well after this certainly was revealed. So let's go ahead and start getting into it. And for those of you who have already seen it, some of this might be familiar to you. But in total, we had 10 titles revealed to us. We have 5 movies along with 5 television series. The 5 movies that were officially announced, we got Superman Legacy, which already has a release date of July 11th, 2025. So that's already set in stone. That's a film. The next film out of the gate for them is going to be The Authority. This was a fun one for James Gunn, according to him. This is these characters, while you may not be familiar with them, they do come from a publishing company, Wildstorm Comics, from back in the day that eventually became a DC imprint. I believe they eventually got folded into DC. And James Gunn has decided to go ahead and use this team as a film. So that's the second film that the DCU has. For the third, they've got Brave and the Bold. This is a brand new Batman movie that will introduce us to a new DCU Batman, along with the Bat family, specifically good old Damian Wayne, as Robin is going to be introduced in here. For the fourth film, we've got Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which is supposed to be a sci-fi epic based off of the Tom King Supergirl, the Woman of Tomorrow miniseries run that he certainly did. So we've got 2 supers that are going to be introduced into this world within the first 4 films. And then last film that they have on their docket is Swamp Thing, as James Gunn is going to be diving into some horror, the horror genre for us as well. What I find interesting, Stuart, is I love the title of this chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, as it gives you really a broad range of exactly what we're going to be getting into. So those are the 5 films. The 5 television series, we've got Creature Commandos, which will be rolling out first. This is going to be an animated television series. and he says you may see these characters in live action. Next up, we got an Amanda Waller series, which is going to be taking place between Peacemaker seasons 1 and Peacemaker season 2. He also said you can expect Team Peacemaker to certainly be in this series as well. Next up, we've got Lanterns. The Greg Berlanti Green Lantern content is done. It's out. They're not utilizing it. But instead, they are going to be doing a more terrestrial, grounded series here for Lanterns, as we're going to be highlighting Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. The fourth title we have for TV, Paradise Lost. Now, this particular television series is going to be happening and taking place before the birth of Wonder Woman, the birth of Diana, and it's going to be focusing on the island of Themyscira. I think they refer to it sort of as a Game of Thrones style television series. And then last but not least for TV, Booster Gold with that fantastic smile as James Gunn reveals this as more of a imposter syndrome type series, as we've got a failure from the future who comes back into the past to make himself a superhero or pretend to certainly be a superhero. So we definitely got the comedy aspect covered for you as well. So 5 films, 5 TV titles. Stuart, you got a top 3 by any chance, or any of these that you're really looking forward to?
You know, the 3 I'm looking forward to the most. I mean, actually, I think number 1, of course, would be Superman, because I freaking love Superman and everything. But the 3 that I'm really looking forward to are the ones that just aren't even like big, like with it, or one of them technically is kind of big within the DC continuity, but like essentially Creature Commandos and the Authorities. Never heard of either of them before, so I am really excited for those 2. The Authority, especially because I feel like, especially with some other interviews that James Gunn has been doing recently, where he's been talking about how like the Superman movie will lead into the Authorities, which kind of leads me to believe that we could see maybe a Superman versus the Elite, but instead of the Elite, it's the Authorities type of a thing going on. You know, whether or not it takes place during the movie The Authorities or like as a sequel, I still think that would be kind of a cool thing that they could play with. But yeah, and then Creature Commando, of course, because I love the fact that we're going to be utilizing animation within this universe, like right from the bat. It's not like Marvel where they didn't start doing that until What If. I like how this is like literally how we're starting the universe, because the first official James Gunn production, you know, not counting any of the movies in 2023 because he had nothing to do with those. The first movie in that production is Creature Commando. So that's pretty cool that he really wants to show that this is going to be a lot different from Marvel. And then, of course, Amanda Waller. Mostly because of the writing team that we got behind it. I mean, we got writers from Doom Patrol and Watchmen, 2 of my favorite superhero shows ever. Like, that is so cool. And you got them writing Amanda Waller, and it's a spinoff from one of my other favorite superhero shows, produced by the guy who you know, made that show. So, I mean, like, I don't see how this could possibly go wrong. Because you know, focusing on Amanda Waller, who I've been loving what the DCU has been doing with her, especially especially since when James Gunn took over. Really curious with this taking place after season 1, if she's going to be like really pissed off at her daughter for like turning her in, and how that's all going to turn out. If it's going to be kind of like Secret Invasion, how like Nick Fury is kind of left with nothing because at this point it seems like he's lost all of his assets. If it's going to be the same for her, because now she's going to be probably wanted, and she's probably not going to have the same resources that she normally has. So if we're going to get a similar story to that, so those would be my top 3, and it's all just basically because like I know the least about what we can expect from them.
Yeah, and you got, I mean, look, you also got Viola Davis in there, right? I mean, you can't do any wrong with Viola Davis. It's just amazing to me that she's like the continuous link from the beginning of the DCEU as we knew it, and continuing here into the DCU. She's always just been pretty amazing. Tony Robinson says, so I'm guessing James Gunn will announce the rest of Chapter 1 at Comic-Con. Possibly. I mean, they may also hold off if they do a DC fandom again. Maybe they announce some of that stuff there, but that's certainly a possibility. They have mentioned that this is just a portion of their chapter 1 slate. It's certainly not everything. Blossom says the Lantern series, I'm all for. Which Lantern Corps do you guys subscribe to? I mean, I'm willpower all day if you're asking for like color spectrum. But yeah, we're gonna get Hal Jordan and John Stewart in here. But considering that it's pretty Earth based, I don't think the idea of a Guy Gardner popping up in here or even a Kyle at any particular point in time. Maybe not right off the bat, but if you're an Earth Lantern, I think there's a chance for you to have a cameo in here. I think at some point.
Mm-hmm. It'd be kind of interesting if they wanted to like introduce one of the other lanterns in the show, but like not as a lantern yet, but just like as kind of like just a character, you know?
A character. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I think Guy Gardner could easily fit into that scheme. So we'll see how it turns out though. Enrique does says, when are these DC Chapter 1 films and TVs will be released? I'm glad you asked, Enrique. So Stuart, I want to go down the timeline, right? Because we already know that we've got 4 films that are going to be dropping here in 2023. We got Shazam, we got The Flash, we've got Blue Beetle, and then we've got Aquaman at the end of 2023. So based off of what the Hollywood Reporter has given us, let's go ahead and dive into some this Hollywood Reporter article here. The article that I'm reading, it says DC Slate unveiled. Let's see here if I can. It says their plan, at least part of one, for what is being billed as Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters was formulated and a slate of projects put into development. It says now, after ambitiously promising fans that he would have something to show by February 1st, they have unveiled the first part of their slate. It says one of our strategies is to take our diamond characters, which is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and we use them to prop up other characters that people don't know. So it's to build those lesser known properties into the diamond properties of tomorrow, which I think is a brilliant idea, if you ask me. I think that's a great way to certainly do it. So it does say here, while plans may shift, caution the duo. Here is the initial slate of projects for Chapter 1 in the order they're planned to appear. Okay, so this is the order in which they're planned to appear. I'll even break down some of these series and movies a little bit more for you guys, so you have all the details. So first up, like you mentioned, Stuart, Creature Commandos is the first one, certainly out of the gates. It's a 7-episode animated series, which is already in production. The voice actors have yet to be cast, but they have said that they are looking for people to find who can voice the animated characters and also portray the live action versions of these characters in shows and in the series as well. How do you feel about that? I think that's a big win for some voice actors out there, huh? Or big stars.
I would actually, yeah, I would say that that's the one thing I'm kind of against. Not like
Okay.
against as in like I don't think they should do it at all. I mean, you know, it's like whatever. But I personally think that, you know, acting and voice acting are 2 very different skills, and just because you
Definitely.
can do one really good doesn't mean you can do the other. So I think like it would have been kind of smarter to stick with voice actors that can mimic who you may have in mind to play that character in live action.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean there. And I guess also you would think that if they are going to eventually be turned into live action, they're probably going to get well-known actors to do the voice of these. So if you are an up-and-coming voice actor, maybe you don't get that opportunity, you know,
Yeah.
unless you are a great actor also, who certainly knows. So to be honest, the only release date for anything that we have is Superman Legacy. But this Creature Commando will be the first of their slate to roll out. So it does say that the James Gunn has written every episode, and since the show is already in production, I'm almost wondering if this will be a 2024 release date for this particular Creature Commandos. But again, they have not confirmed anything. It says the premise features Frankenstein monsters teaming up with a werewolf, a vampire, and a gorgon to fight Nazis in World War II. It doesn't appear that Gunn's version takes quite the same approach. They might modernize it just a little bit, but they do say that Weasel, as you can see here on the very far right, one of the characters from the 2021 film, The Suicide Squad, is in here. So this is Weasel from the Suicide Squad movie that you guys remember. And Rick Flag's father, Rick Flag Sr., is all the way here to the very left. So they're already making some connective tissues to the Suicide Squad movie that we've already had. They did say that animation allows their creative collaborators to tell stories that are gigantic, but without spending $50 million in episodes. So he has mentioned this is going to be pretty bombastic. So on the timeline of things, I would assume that this would come out after the Aquaman movie, possibly maybe in 2024. But again, they have not revealed anything. On the next list, after Creature Commandos is released, they plan on also releasing the Waller series. Again, this is a spin-off from James Gunn's Peacemaker. They have mentioned also the idea that when it comes to Waller, since James Gunn is focused on Superman Legacy for the foreseeable future, season 2 of Peacemaker has been put on hold. Instead, Team Peacemaker will appear alongside Viola Davis as a continuation of that show. So this is in continuation right after season 1 of Peacemaker. And as Stuart mentioned, it's going to be written by Crystal Henry, who wrote Watchmen, along with Jeremy Carver, who created the Doom Patrol series. Two very high critically acclaimed series working together to go ahead and put this together. And James Gunn is as excited as you could possibly imagine, Stuart. He says they're crushing it. It's just the greatest show ever, is what he says. So I love how he discusses that.
I also love how, okay, so the movie and the TV show that he seems to be praising the most are the two that he's technically not even involved with completely, because he talks about the Flash and he's like, this is the greatest superhero movie I've ever seen, which he zero involvement in that movie. And then he's talking about Waller, which he's a producer on, but he's not like a writer on the show, and he's talking about this like it's the greatest superhero show ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's definitely pumped for it. Tony Robinson says, I wouldn't be surprised if Creature Commandos and Waller both drop late next year. And that's interesting that you say that, because they do mention, it says both Creature Commandos and Wallers are expected to debut before Superman Legacy. Peter Safran called them, and he referred to them as a apparative. I didn't know what apparative meant. So I had to go ahead and Google it to figure out what is apparative. I could even be pronouncing that wrong, but apparently it's like a drink that you have before your main course. So like an appetizer, like a drink appetizer. Okay. So it seems as though Creature Commandos and Wallers just to get your mouth wet and ready for what is the true beginning of the DCU. And that, in fact, will come next, which is Superman Legacy, which is set to drop July 11th, 2025. So yeah, I would expect Creature Commandos and Waller to maybe be in 2004, maybe Waller early 2025. Who knows? But I expect those to definitely come out before Superman Legacy, as they mention here.
I do really hope with Waller, I feel like if there's any show to use to kind of really explain what the big differences are going to be going forward between the DCEU and the DCU, I feel like Waller would be the perfect show for that.
I think you're right. I think if there's anything like, hey, if we need to clarify for people what's going on with this transition, I do think that Waller would be a really great place to kind of contextualize it, or at least summarize it for fans a little bit, so that when they go into Superman Legacy, they understand what they're getting themselves into. And I think also at the same time, it really allows Amanda Waller to still play a pivotal role in the DCU, certainly going forward. I don't think this is the last that we've seen of her at all.
Mm-hmm. Make something that would be kind of funny is you make like a very subtle difference to Peacemaker's costume. Someone points it out, like probably Amanda Waller. I feel like she'd be the one who has information of the previous universe, so she points it out to him, and him being like, "What are you talking about? It's always been like this."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's see. So after that, after those two, then we've got Superman Legacy. This movie features the Man of Steel that Gunn has written and may direct. Peter Safran apparently is really trying to push for James Gunn to possibly direct this film, but we'll definitely see. That's still up in the air. It says while the two previous titles, oh, never mind. It says Superman is the true kickoff for the duo's plans for the DCU. They say it's not an origin story. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is kindness in a world that thinks that kindness is old fashioned. And I kind of like the way that they put that, honestly, Stuart. Like, it does feel like, we talk about the idea of like Man of Steel sort of modernizing Superman for today's day and age. And, while I certainly do think that there is hope in that movie, it can still certainly come across quite cynical and kind of dark, right? And just kind of put this edge onto Superman. And that's what they refer to as modernizing. But I think it's kind of cool, the idea that James Gunn wants to continue to focus the idea, at least, of maybe taking sort of that Christopher Reeves Superman ideology and literally putting it into today's time period, where the concept of being kind to one another, respecting your neighbor sort of thing has kind of been like thrown out the window a little bit, right? That we kind of see that mindset as a little bit old fashioned and not the way that people act today for the most part. So I kind of dig that idea that he is the kindness in the world that thinks that kindness is old fashioned. And I think maybe something like a Superman movie might be something that we need for this era that we're currently in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they have. I hope it gets executed better, because these were themes that they tried to kind of explore in Dawn of Justice. But I do like the idea of exploring the idea
Right.
that, like, everyone has this idea that absolute power corrupts, absolutely. But then you get a guy like Superman who has that absolute power and he refuses to let it corrupt him. And so I love the idea of having like a world where people just can't accept that, someone with all this power could just be a good guy for the sake of being a good guy.
Being a good guy.
So
Yeah.
I am really excited to see how they explore themes like that within this movie. And I love the way they do it in Superman and Lois. So now I'm excited to see how they do it with a movie that actually has a budget.
Yeah, and I think some of the things I've been reading was the idea like Superman and Lois does that really well, but the setting is in Smallville, right? So
Yeah.
now you get to kind of play around with that aspect, but in a big, a much more metropolitan type of epic, epic scope, if you will. Sorry
And
about
also in
about
Superman
that.
and Lois, he's kind of already earned the trust for the most part, because we're picking off with him like,
Like years later.
years into Superman. This is going to be like Superman only 2 years in. So this is going to be a world where it's like people are still going to be very unsure whether or not they can trust a person like Superman. So yeah, man, there's a lot of fun aspects that they could explore with this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He does say that Superman is for everyone. That's a four-quadrant film that should speak to everyone in the world. And they do clarify that there is a separate Superman movie in development by J.J. Abrams and Tanashi Coates, which remains in development and would exist outside of the DCU. So it does seem as though they still plan on doing that other Superman movie. So we go from Superman into where's the thing, lanterns. So we're going from movie to television here. So it looks like lanterns is going to be the next up that's going to be revealed to us. They did say that Greg Berlanti's long in the works Green Lantern series was more of a space opera, but that idea has been scrapped. In its place, it will take a new take on it, on the space cops with power rings. He says our vision for this is much more in the veins of True Detective. It's terrestrial based, and it will feature Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, and is one of the most important shows that they have in development. He says this plays a very big role in leading into the main story we are telling across film and TV. So while Superman Legacy is the beginning of the DCU plans here, Lanterns really fleshes out the bigger story role, the main story that will be told across all of these at the end of the day. So they really are hyping this up to be a very important show for them that really needs to kind of succeed and help launch the DCU wherever it's certainly going to go. It says it is considered a huge HBO quality event. So you know they're going to be putting their money behind it, honestly. If you watch HBO Max series, you know there's always attention to detail. You know that if they believe in it, they're going to put the money behind it. Just look at a la Chernobyl, The Last of Us, White Lotus. I mean, a ton of other great content over on HBO Max. So they're really, it says, they will investigate a mystery that plays a really big role leading us into the main story that we're telling across film and television. So this is a very important show for us.
So,
I'm looking forward to it.
question.
What's up?
So the original premise, it seems like they were going to be a lot more fantastical about it, a lot more sci-fi like they were going to be in space a lot more. But for
Right.
this one, like you were mentioning, it's going to be a lot more grounded. So do you think would you say you're more excited for this one than you were for the previous Green Lantern series? What would you say you prefer personally?
Yeah, personally, I would love the space opera, just because there's something cool about Green, I was about to say Power Rangers, Green Lanterns from different eras, getting back to visit Alan Scott, then going to like the 80s or 90s for Guy Gardner, then going more current with Jessica and Simon. I especially if you got a really big story that you want to tell, the idea of a soap opera, a space opera, sounds really incredible to me, honestly. But I also kind of dig the idea of a true detective vibe to it. It, it does make me want to lower my expectations a little bit in the sense of like, what alien creatures are we going to see? Like, is this all going to be on Earth only? Will we ever see the planet OA? Will we get to see like a Kilowog visit Earth? Like, hey, I got to deliver a message from the Guardians for you guys or something. Like I am kind of curious what they mean by terrestrial base. Will it be only on Earth, or will we see them fly off planet? You know what I mean? But I kind of dig the idea of Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart working side by side. Maybe one's like a good cop, maybe one's a bad cop, or it's got that military edge to him, sort of thing, right? So there is something really cool about a more grounded, true detective. But I can't lie, the nerd in me really wanted to see just a big space opera. I think that would have been pretty awesome.
I think for me, if like the Green Lantern show was in its like own universe, I would have loved to have seen what the original idea for it would have been with the space opera aspect, and then getting to explore like all these different lanterns from all these different generations. But I think if it's part of the bigger universe, it's kind of smart to start out on a smaller, like more grounded level, and then just expand more as the
Expand.
universe expands. So I think like just because this is part of like a bigger universe, I am actually looking a little more forward to this one than I was the previous version.
No, I can totally understand that for sure. And yeah, when you've got something that you need to establish a new universe, maybe something grounded is probably the better way to go, especially if it's that important of a show and it's really going to be. I guess you maybe don't want to take away from the story itself. You know what I mean? Of what is truly yet to come down the path for the DCU. So after the Lanterns, again, we go from Superman the movie to Lanterns the television show, and now we go back to the movies as we tackle the Authority. This, Stuart, kind of feels to me like you want to take a swing in the dark. This feels very much like Thor. This feels like a Guardians of the Galaxy, like risks that the MCU take, and you really hope that it's pulled off to perfection, so that you can not only grow some of these brand new characters, but really expand this world more. I do think that this is certainly a risky project for them, but one that James Gunn seems very excited about. So it says The Authority is a movie based on a team of superheroes with rather extreme methods of protecting the planet, that first originated in the late 1990s under the influential imprint known as Wildstorm, which was run by Jim Lee at the time. James Gunn says one of the things that the DCU is that it's not just a story of heroes and villains. Not every film and TV show is going to be about good guy versus bad guy. Giant things from the sky come and good guys win. There are white hats, black hats, and gray hats. They're kind of like Jack Nicholson in the movie A Few Good Men. They know that you want them on the wall, or at least they believe that. So it's like when the shit hits the fan, you want these guys at the front line, despite you maybe having to swallow your pride at the thought of having them, just because of the outlandish ways in which they sort of take care of business, if you will, right? So this automatically already, to me, Stuart, feels like the polar opposite of Superman. It says from global fame to relative obscurity, Superman legacy will lead directly into the authority. So while we have a television series between the two, from a movie perspective, Superman does lead into the authority, which is an ensemble movie about superheroes who have less than an idealistic approach to saving the world. James Gunn is very excited about this opportunity to kind of tell their stories. And it says there are people who that are very questionable, like the authority, who basically believe that you can't fix the world in an easy manner, and they take things into their own hands. It says the movie is being written now, but they are declining to say who's going to be the screenwriter for this movie. And I kind of dig the polar opposites that they immediately sort of establish in here with your first two films. One side, you've got a guy that stands for truth, justice, and the American way. And then you got a group that just says, hey, whatever way that we need to handle this. You know what I mean? So I love just the polar opposites that you immediately sort of establish. And I get vibes of like The Boys in here a little bit, don't you?
A little bit, yeah. And this is what kind of like led me to believe that it's a huge possibility with the whole Superman versus the elite aspect, but in this case, it'd be Superman versus the authority. Because yeah, you get this group of superheroes that has no problem doing what they need to do to get the job done compared to Superman. And in Superman versus the elite, people are pissed at Superman for not doing what he needs to do. So I would love to see like Superman, versus the authority, and then just kind of having it end with like, it looking like Superman just wiped out the authority, all of the authority characters, and being like, this is what it's going to look like if I were to start killing people. Is this really what you want, guys? Before revealing, of course, that he never actually did, just like, in the comic book, that he never actually did kill any of them. He just made it look like he did. I think that would be kind of a fun direction to go with it. But we'll wait and see. Like I said, totally trust like James Gunn currently hasn't done anything to like make me think, he has like no plan or no direction. But I do think that there's a reason this movie is going to be right after Superman.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's definitely a way to certainly establish the world and just the mindset in which probably the world views things. So I am really fascinated by this. Again, I still personally feel like this is one of their bigger risks out of all the other movies that they've announced, just because there's nobody in this film that we certainly know. But the one thing that I do enjoy is that, at the beginning of this, they did talk about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman being their key characters and utilizing those characters to prop up other characters. And so it may not surprise me if, say, Superman maybe even pops up in the authority in some way or another, or they talk about him in some way or another to make that kind of connection and make us want to know who the authority characters certainly are going forward. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do here. And I think, did somebody even mention this? Ram Jam says the characters in the authority are tender lovers. And I think he says, Marcelino also says for the authority, Apollo and Midnighter, the main characters are a gay couple. So that's an aspect that would be fun to explore. That doesn't happen a lot in superhero genre, let alone in films. I've never seen that in a superhero movie either. I'm sure some people will shit their pants at that notion of a gay couple being the leads of a superhero movie. But I love it, man. I think it's going to be pretty interesting film, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because, like, yeah, usually in a superhero movie, when that does happen, it's like always like the background characters or just kind of like the side characters who have a off-screen romance or something like that. So it's kind of cool that now we're gonna have like the two main characters of the movie,
Two main
like
characters.
in a relationship.
And they also after the Authority, again, we went movie with Superman, TV with Lanterns, movie with the Authority, and now we move back to television as we have Paradise Lost. The duo described this HBO series as an Game of Thrones style drama set on the all-female island that is Wonder Woman's birthplace, Themyscira, filled with political intrigue and scheming between power players, and it does take place before the events of the Wonder Woman films. They also say that it's really about the political intrigue behind a society of all women. How did that come to be? What's the origin of an island of all women? What are the beautiful truths and the ugly truths behind all of that? And what's the scheming like between different power players in that society? It does say that the title recalls the Paradise Island Lost comic series, which was authored by Jim Jimenez and George Perez, which followed a civil war on Themyscira. However, that run directly involved Wonder Woman. So they are making connections as to maybe some of the influences behind this particular television series. But this is one that really intrigues me a lot, Stuart. To be honest with you, I almost feel like this allows Wonder Woman to exist still as we know her. This kind of like doesn't allow them to have to take Gal Gadot out of the equation whatsoever as of right now, especially if this takes place before the other Wonder Woman films, kind of like giving Gal Gadot some time to think about it, like if she wants to come back, certainly, or not. But there's so many incredible characters on Themyscira. I think that they can highlight Artemis, Nubia, Hippolyta, Wonder Woman's mother. And the idea of how did this become a island of all women? Was it always like that? Were there men there at some point in time? What was that power struggle like? You say Game of Thrones, I come running, Stuart. So I'm kind of intrigued by this, especially if it's going to be on HBO Max. What do you think about Paradise Lost?
100% agree. It's funny because apparently there was like a pitch for something very similar to this, like on the CW though. So I'm really
Oh,
glad that did not go through, and instead we're going to get one that would actually have the budget that you would need for an epic show like this. And yeah, like you said, you
yeah.
say Game of Thrones, I'm hooked. I don't care how the show ended. The journey getting there was amazing, and the new spinoff show House of Dragon is absolutely amazing as well. So I am all for this, especially if we're going with the Amazons. Very curious to see, depending on how this show does, if it gets renewed for like another season, if like we get to explore not only like ancient Themyscira, but possibly ancient like Atlantis and things like that.
Oh, that would be pretty cool, right? Like, what if they come into the conversation? What if like an Atlantean visits Themyscira or something like that and gets involved in the bigger scheme of the world? That's kind of cool. So I never even contemplated the idea of like other nations maybe even popping up in this show.
Yeah.
I'm pumped for that. I'm pumped for that. So, so that's your Wonder Woman connection that we have for the DCU. After that, from TV, we go back to the movies. As next up, we're going to be tackling the new Batman film titled Brave and the Bold. This is the introduction of the DCU, also the introduction of our favorite Robin, Damian Wayne, who is a little son of a bitch, according to James Gunn. It says the movie will take inspiration from the now classic Batman run by Grant Morrison that introduced Batman to a son he never knew existed, a murderous tween raised by assassins. They say it's a very strange father and son story. And they do say that, yes, the Robert Pattinson movies will continue. And they also announced the Batman sequel for October 3rd of 2025. So Superman Legacy, July 11th, 2025, and the Batman sequel, the Robert Pattinson film, October 3rd, 2025. But this movie, Brave and the Bold, will be introducing us to a new DCU Batman. It also says the Brave and the Bold will introduce the Bat family. First among them is, in fact, Robin. So the idea of them mentioning the Bat family, I'll pick your brain in regards to what you think that certainly means, Stuart. But other than that, I'm really looking forward to this particular film also.
I
What
got
are
to
your
be
thoughts about?
honest. I don't know how I feel about James Gunn calling Batman a bitch.
No. Robin,
No, no, no.
Damien.
but he called Damian a son of a bitch.
Oh.
Anyways, yeah, so I mentioned this on Twitter a bit ago. So this is the one announcement that I wasn't the happiest about. Okay, yeah, I definitely could see why people don't like Damian Wayne. There are times where he's written well as a character, other times where he's not. It really just depends on who's writing him. So I totally get the argument for against Damian Wayne. Personally, I don't mind Damian Wayne as a character. I think like he's very unlikable in his introduction, but that's on purpose.
That's part
And
of
I
it. Yeah, that's
think
part of it.
and I think he gets better. There are times in the Teen Titans run that they did during Rebirth, where like during Teen Titans and Super Sons, where he had like a moment where he kind of relapsed into his more crazy assassin self, and I didn't like that. But besides that, I do think Damian Wade did get a lot better as time went on. But my biggest complaint about this would be the timeline, because I don't like, I'm not super against there being a more experienced Batman compared to a younger Superman. But
Gotcha.
if this movie does take place like around the same time as Superman, so Superman's only 2 years into being Superman, whereas Batman's like a lot more experienced to the point where he has a Bat family and Damian Wayne, it means it's very unlikely we're ever going to get like a Super Sons kind of a team up movie or TV show that you could have gotten with Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent, because it's very unlikely Superman, 2 years into being Superman, is going to have a son, around the same age as Damian Wayne. So that would be my big complaint about the DC Universe announcement so far. Plus, also, I just think you kind of limit yourself when you do a big time jump like that. So any chance you had of really developing this Batman universe or this Batman side of the DC universe kind of gets thrown out the window, because now you kind of just started. It was the same issue I kind of had with them starting out the Dawn of Justice movie with a Frank Miller Batman. It's like, I don't really want to see that, a Batman who's already gone. Yeah, at the end of his career. I want to see, the Batman, at the start of the Bat family in this DC universe. I don't want to see an origin either, because obviously we got that with the Robert Pattinson movie. So I want it to be like further along than Robert Pattinson, but I don't want it to be like that far along,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of depict this as sort of like Batman in his prime at this point,
Yeah.
He's kind of already established himself. He's clearly brought up another generation of heroes, especially if he's got a son who's going to be coming into this movie at what, like 10, 13 years old, maybe, right? It'll be interesting to see who they cast for this role and what age they certainly set Damian Wayne at. But yeah, we're definitely getting ourselves a Batman who seems to be maybe at the peak of his career at this point in regards to his prime. I'm excited, if anything, for this film because, one, it's a father and son story, which, since I've had a child myself, I feel like anything father-son related immediately just like connects to me. But it's going to be a very strange one, considering the father's a vigilante and the kid's an assassin. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but it feels new and unique, and I feel like we've never seen Batman sort of placed in this situation before, so it definitely has my interest. And when they say Bat family, man, my head just goes just out there. I'm thinking Dick Grayson established as a Nightwing might pop up in this movie. I'm even keeping my fingers crossed that Leslie Grace reprises her role as Batgirl and pops up in this particular film also. I think it would be a really great way to kind of establish some of the lead characters. And I've always wanted to see the Bat family at least introduced, to whether that be the Robert Pattinson side of things or even the overall scheme of the DCU. I just feel like there's so many great characters. The idea of, again, utilizing Batman to prop up these other characters, I think, is extremely important.
Agreed. I also really hope with
Okay.
I would also love it if they brought back the actress for Cassandra Cain, but if they like kind of rewrote her entire character to make her a lot more comic book accurate.
From Birds of Prey?
Yeah, because I think she
okay.
did a good job in a role. It was never like her performance that I didn't like. It was just the way she was written. So I would love to see if they wanted to bring her back, if they want to make her more comic book accurate,
That would be pretty cool. I wonder if they would take that swing for sure. I would be open to seeing, Flashpoint does change some things, not everything, but it does change some things. Maybe that's definitely one of the tweaks that they have in mind. So after Brave and the Bold from movie, we transition back to television as we've got good old Booster Gold that's going to get the opportunity here. It says this is an HBO Max series based on a unique, lesser known hero from the 1980s. They do say that the series is about a loser from the future who uses basic future technology to come back to today and pretend to be a superhero. James Gunn sort of describes it as imposter syndrome as a superhero. It says in the 25th century, Mike Carter is a disgraced former football player who uses his time machine, a time machine on display in the in the Metropolis Space Museum. This is a kind of a brief one for me. I'm excited for the television series. This is definitely going to be that comedy aspect of things for sure. But I think we've all wanted something Booster Gold related for like the longest time. I mean, we begged for it during the Arrowverse days, when Walter Hamada came on and we knew we were going to get ourselves a Blue Beetle movie, not showing the direction of that Blue Beetle movie. I think a lot of us were hoping for like a Blue Beetle Booster Gold buddy cop sort of film, right? So we've always been asking for Booster Gold in some capacity, and we're finally getting it in an HBO Max series. How do you feel about that, Stuart? Are you happy he's going to get his opportunity?
Yes, very much so. I think, this is a character that I think will be done really well because James Gunn is producing it and he knows and I think he will know exactly who to attach to this project. So I am excited.
Yeah, I think so. Also, and that's really what we're leaving Peter Safran, his job to do, along with James Gunn, is to find the people that connect with these series the most to go ahead and bring them to life. So while I'm not expecting James Gunn to write everything, I do expect them to find the right man for the job to write and direct this series. So from
Do
movie,
you have
excuse
a
me,
fan
go ahead.
cast that you would have for Booster Gold?
Look, man, I've already seen a bunch of Chris Pratts. I don't know if Chris Pratt's a little bit too old for the role now, but I think that's always a good win. But I think everybody's connecting Chris Pratt at this point. But outside of that, I haven't really had the time to think of like outside the box as to who I would like to see in that role. Do you have somebody in mind outside of Chris Pratt?
I got two. One of them pretty obvious, but I think it would be really funny if they brought back Donald Faison from Legends of Tomorrow to reprise his role, since he only got to play him for like one episode. That would be kind of funny. But the other one I have in mind, Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, yeah, I've been seeing that connection too. Uh-huh. I kind of dig that one. I'd be
Yeah.
open to that. I still haven't seen Top Gun Maverick. Does he show off
What?
any? Yeah, I still haven't seen it yet, bro.
Oh.
It's on Paramount. It's on Paramount. I know that they re-released it in theaters. I'm hoping that they re-release it again for the Oscars because I really want to see it on the big screen. Does he have any comedy chops in that movie at all? Does he
Oh
showcase
yeah.
that side or no?
He's
Okay.
kind of like the comedic. I don't want to fully say bully, but he's like the comedic douchebag in the
Oh,
movie. Yeah, he's
okay. He
basically
might.
like he's basically the next generation for Iceman. Basically, that was his name, right? In the first Top Gun movie, Iceman.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's basically
So
like
shit.
he's like the next generation for Iceman.
I mean that might line up perfectly with Booster Gold here. Christopher Throbbing also says Joe Carey from Stranger Things could be good. Joe Carey, let me
Who's that?
Oh, it's the guy that works at the ice cream shop. Homeboy that's was dating God, I can't remember her name now. If you
Oh,
Google Joe Carey, that would be a good one too. I'd be open for that.
yeah.
He's a little bit of a pretty boy, so he might fill that role pretty nicely. So we go from television to the last two topics here, guys. Frankie says Zach Efron. Um, so
That I
so
could
we
see that too.
so we go from the television to movies as we've got the last two titles that are going to be talked about here. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. This is Supergirl is taking its cue from the recent Tom King written miniseries. This movie promises a different take than what most think of when it comes to Superman's cousin. He says We will see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock, a chip off of Krypton, and who watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, then comes to Earth. She's a much more hardcore and not the Supergirl we're used to. I think I even heard James Gunn mention the idea of her being sort of a jaded character than what we've seen before in the past. And he does reference this as being like a sci-fi sort of epic. So I am expecting big visuals in here, maybe some outer space adventures as well. I personally haven't had the opportunity to read the Tom King Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow series, but I definitely plan on ordering it at some point in time. I will say this is probably up there with in at least in my top three stories, movies that I definitely want to see from the DCU. And it does make me beg the question, is Sasha Kaye, who plays Supergirl in The Flash, is this going to be her role, or are they going to recast for that role for this particular movie? That I certainly don't know. But do you have any thoughts on what you hear from Supergirl so far?
So the biggest complaint that a lot of people had with the Supergirl TV show was that it was basically just Superman, but like
Hmm.
written as a woman, because a lot of the aspects of Supergirl from the comic books just really weren't there with her character in the show. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Melissa Benoist's Supergirl. It's just not the same Supergirl from the comics. So with this, and the fact that they're not even having it take place on Earth, the fact that it's this huge epic sci-fi adventure, I love that they're basically, fully establishing this is not Superman, but a woman. This is a completely new character. And I think that Sasha Kaye would be perfect to reprise that role, especially because, like, in the comic books, the plot starts because she's on a planet with a red sun because she wants to be able to get drunk on her 21st birthday. And I think Sasha Kaye, being as young as she is, she could totally fit that age gap, or that age range right there.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The fact that this isn't necessarily just a copy and paste of the Superman personality just immediately separates the two. Like, I found it interesting when I first saw the slate, like, oh wow, we're introducing a second super into this universe in literally four movies. So it does kind of take me by surprise, but getting the opportunity to hear James Gunn talk about literally the differences, how they were raised, the things that this young Supergirl has certainly had to go through, just screams complete polar opposite of Superman. And I think also establishes what their relationship certainly might be like if she ever does come to Earth, how Superman really will be sort of this role model, this cousin, and this guide of hers, because she's had to see some horrific things in her life, and to kind of get her adapted to normal human life, or at least living on another planet, I think is going to be really interesting. But I do think that this movie will certainly separate the two, and make them feel like their own two completely separate characters. And I think that's certainly a good move on their part.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, out of the gate, after Superman, excuse me, after Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, last up, guys, we're getting Swamp Thing. This is in fact a horror film that promises to close out the first part of the first chapter, is what they say. It says Swamp Thing will investigate the dark origins of Swamp Thing through the prism of horror. By way of explaining further, Gunn referenced initial reactions to the Guardians of the Galaxy joining the MCU and the initial questions about how Rocket Raccoon would work standing next to Thor. He says that mashup quality wound up being one of the highlights of Infinity War and Endgame. He says they're one-upping that approach with Swamp Thing. This is a much more horrific film, but we'll still have Swamp Thing interact with other characters. So I am kind of curious as to what those other characters are going to be. I do think, listen, if you're going to be getting into the realm of horror here, this is a great way to start introducing us to the Justice League Dark at some point in time. This opens the door for a Constantine, for a Zatanna, for even something like the Dead Man or the Demon, if they wanted to kind of go down those routes at some particular point in time. And who knows, maybe again, they talk about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman being utilized to prop up these other characters. Maybe we get some of those main characters popping up in this Swamp Thing movie as well. But when I see this, Stuart, and see the horror aspect added to this, it makes me look at the slate of films in a much different light, in the sense of there's a lot of diversity in here in regards to the different types of movies that certainly need to be made, that they're not all necessarily going to feel the same. And I think that's a really good swing. The MCU established, hey, you can have a comic book movie in separate different types of genres. And now the DCU, where they're at right now, taking full advantage of that and really mixing up the diversity when it comes to tones for this slate of DCU films. And I think Swamp Thing is a perfect example of that. What are you thinking so far about the Swamp Thing?
100% agree with what you just said. Yeah, that's one of the things that James Gunn made very clear when, even before he took over DC, back when he was just doing the Suicide Squad movie. People were saying, this, like, look at what he's doing to DC because he's trying to turn it into like a Marvel thing, and they tried to compare like Zack Snyder to James Gunn, and James Gunn just kind of replied like, this is DC though. DC doesn't have one specific tone. It's all over the place, depending on who's writing, depending on which character we're focusing on. So to have like a Swamp Thing movie that is totally different from everything we're getting before, to have an Authorities movie, which seems like it's going to be totally different from what we're getting before, I think is a brilliant move. And I really look forward to seeing not only how they do like on their own in their individual movies, but I really love seeing how those different tones are going to clash when you start to get those crossovers.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, we also got a comedy and Booster Gold. You've
Yeah.
got that detective vibe for True Detective and Lanterns, Game of Thrones vibe and Paradise Lost sort of thing. So really mixing up how all of these are certainly going to be different, but all still within the DCU. And that honestly gets me excited. We don't have too many directors or writers announced for this stuff. But this week, speaking of Swamp Thing, we do have possibly some information in regards to who might direct the Swamp Thing movie. And the Hollywood Reporter is letting us know that James Mangold is currently in talks to tackle a Swamp Thing movie for James Gunn and Peter Safran's DCU Studios. He actually teased this week. It says Mangold, who has Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny hitting theaters in May, is in early talks to be one of the first writers/directors to join James Gunn. It does say that he is in discussion with Warner Brothers to take on the feature adaptation. He went ahead and actually posted, I think, this was his tweet that he posted teasing Swamp Thing on his Twitter account. It says, Mangold on Tuesday tweeted a simple but moody and poetic image of Swamp Thing. Gunn retweeted the post, suggesting that the talks were headed in a hopeful direction. He says Mangold is said to be a massive fan of the character and the stories. According to sources, he approached Gunn and Safran with his ideas. Swamp Thing would be a few years away, yet he may in fact be in the running for it. So I would love the idea of a James Mangold directed Swamp Thing movie. I don't know if I've seen him tackle a horror film before, but looking at James Mangold's just docket of work, I mean, this guy's range in regards to what he can direct or even write is pretty impressive, to certainly say the least. I think he's got an incredible track record, not only working currently on Indiana Jones, but he also did Logan. He also did Ford v Ferrari, which was an incredible film as well. So it should be interesting, especially if he's got a love for the Swamp Thing character. I think James Mangold as a possible director, or at least a writer, it would be certainly a win for sure. I mean, James Mangold, I think, is like one of the better directors and writers in Hollywood as of right now. So I think this would be a really big win for DC Studios to acquire somebody like him. What do you think, though, Stuart?
Yeah, I fully agree. I love his overall resume, like everything he's done before. Ford versus Ferrari is a great movie, and of course, Logan is one of my all-time favorite comic book movies. I think the only worry I might have is that, yeah, I've never seen him direct horror, so I don't like have an idea of what this movie is going to really look and feel like. But that being said, that isn't me saying, oh, he's never directed horror, so he can't do this. That's me saying I'm just very curious is all. So very cautiously optimistic with Swamp Thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely can understand that for sure. But guys, that's the lineup. That's the movies. The movies and television that James Gunn and Peter Safran have in store for us. There are a couple of tidbits of information that I do think is important to understand, that maybe they didn't get the opportunity to discuss in either the James Gunn DC announcement or anything that you guys have read in the bigger articles like the Hollywood Reporter and Variety and things like that. So there may be some additional questions that you guys might have in regards to why this direction, right? Why did they choose this particular film slate? And so I do have an interview here with James Gunn and Peter Safran that I do think is pretty insightful, that I definitely want to explore a little bit further with you guys. So Stuart, let's go ahead and highlight this. This is actually from DC.com, talking about the building of the new DC universe. This is what they say. Right off the bat, just a quote for them. They say, I think we've gotten lucky with the next four movies, because we have Shazam, which leads into The Flash, which resets everything, which then goes into Blue Beetle, which is totally disconnected from everything that kind of came before and can be a part of the DCU, which then goes into Aquaman, and that will lead into Superman Legacy, our first big project. But the one thing that we can promise is that everything from our first project forward will be canon and will be connected. We're using some actors from the past. We're not using other actors from the past, but everything from that moment forward will be connected and consistent.
Mhm.
So let's go to the interviews themselves. So they say, why a shared universe is the right approach going forward. Peter Safran says DC has had individual movies over the years, but we think what the audience really appreciates and needs is a connected universe. It minimizes audiences' confusion and it maximizes its connectivity to it across all platforms. And James Gunn says, I think that's something that people love. I know that from my own experience. But again, we do have Elseworlds tells that we're telling. The bar for an Elseworlds tale is going to be a higher bar for a movie within the DCU. Not that we're not always going to have a high bar, but it's got to be something really special for us to tell that story outside of the regular continuity and to spend the money to make it. When you,
Mhm.
I do find that interesting, Stuart. The idea and the concept of the bar that's now been raised for Elseworlds movies. How does that make you feel?
No, that makes total sense. If you're gonna tell a story that you think has to be told outside the DC universe, you need to show us why it's justified that it's outside the DC universe. You need to give us a good reason for that.
Yeah, and for me, it also just makes me know that hey, we're not just going to be throwing things to the wall and hoping that it sticks.
Yeah.
We're not just going to be making movies just to make movies because we're not out here trying to confuse you, type of thing, right? There are plenty Elseworld stories to certainly be told, but in order for us to make something outside of our continuity, you got to come with the goods, right? Like you really got to freaking impress us here. So I love the bar that they're raising. They also ask how many movies they're aiming for each year. Peter Safran says probably two movies and two series per
Wow.
year. So right out of the gate. So my understanding of that, Stuart, would probably mean that if we have, say, a Superman movie coming out in July, that I would think that then we would also get maybe the Authority that same year in 2025. And as for television shows, I would expect Lanterns and then maybe Paradise Lost to maybe be the initial drop for say 2025. Do you think that's kind of too much at this point, or do you think it's a good amount of spacing and amount of movies and stuff?
Man, it's hard to say because the biggest
Yeah.
factors is what their assets are going to be in terms of like filming spaces, how many people they got working on these projects, but also how many people were able to, make sure they're communicating to make sure that they're all on the same page. I think it's doable. Marvel's been doing an all right job, although recently I get that there's been a lot of issues with some of the people that they've been hiring for the CG because they're getting them to do a little bit more than they can possibly handle. So hopefully that's something that DC kind of learns from Marvel's mistakes, so they can manage that kind of thing better. But I do think that, yeah, it is probably possible to pull off that. That is ambitious, very
Yeah.
ambitious, but very possible.
Yeah, I think it's ambitious too. I think the problem with the MCU right now is like we're clearly getting more than 4 projects a year from them, right? I feel like it's like
Mhm.
6 to 8 a year, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like they're really kind of stretching themselves a little bit thin. I don't know when it took Marvel to get to the 2 movies a year thing, or if that's something that they were doing, pretty early on or not. But I do think while it is ambitious, I do think that it does allow still for some spacing between things. To have a television show maybe in summer here for July, getting the opportunity to have a television series somewhere in between there. Maybe The Authority comes out in say fall, and then maybe something like Paradise Lost wraps up it. So maybe you've got like a 3 month hiatus kind of in between each project. I do think that it's probably the right amount to be releasing each year without making yourself feel like you're stretching it too thin. So I do think it is certainly possible. Um, they also ask how they decide which medium to use for each project. James Gunn says it's all story based. To us, storytelling is 100% king. So if a story that's more complicated, like Lanterns or a Waller story, or has a more independent TV vibe, like Booster Gold, then that it's more situated for television. It has to do with tone, storytelling, and if it's something that we can tell in 2 hours and 10 minutes, or if it's something that we need 7 or 8 episodes for. It says, we certainly debated a couple of these projects and where they fit better, but ultimately, this is certainly where we landed. So, again, I think the importance of James Gunn showcasing that storytelling is all that they matter about here. And I think even if you go back and check out the DC announcement that they had, they even emphasized the idea that, yeah, we need our scripts to be perfect, and we're not going to reveal anything but until the scripts are perfect. So
Mhm.
I kind of dig that idea.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like everyone's like bothering James Gunn on Twitter to find out who's going to be playing Superman. I like that James Gunn doesn't want to decide until like the script is mostly done, until they have like a fully fleshed out idea of what the Superman movie is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. They say how they decide on ratings or whether or not something should be live action or animated. He says it depends on the story. We're going to give every story what it deserves. Some things we know, like Superman, is definitely something we'd like to be PG-13. Others, like the Waller TV show, something a little bit more mature. And we have other things that are aimed at young women and kids and things like that as well. So it's a little bit of all over the place. He says on whether they're planning any big Justice League type crossover events. He says everything's crossing over throughout. These characters are all interacting through the different stories. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean always. He says Brave and the Bold may just be Batman, Robin, and other characters involved in that. But I know a lot of other times these characters cross around. And Creature Commandos, one of those main characters, also shows up in Waller.
I think I know which
Um,
one.
what do you think? You
I'm
think it's?
betting it's Weasel.
Oh yeah, probably Weasel. He probably makes his comeback at some point in time. Although Weasel didn't. Oh, that's right. Weasel did. He didn't die in Suicide Squad. I think he was like one of the lone survivors, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I was
Um,
like, I think that was the after credit scene if I
was that
remember
the after
correctly.
credits? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
they
think
made it
so.
seem like he drowned, but then like at the very end, he just shows up on shore.
I do wonder if this is the situation of like addressing, like, some Marvel fans have been like, oh, well, if Spider-Man is in a movie, but he needs help, why doesn't so and so come and help him? Right. Like from the Avengers or something. I do wonder if I wonder if that's kind of in play here in the sense of like, we may not have a Justice League type crossover event to begin with, sort of thing. But make no mistake, these characters will be crossing into other people's movies so that they do make that sort of connective tissue. And I'm kind of a fan of that. Like, I think
Mhm.
that they'll definitely have their opportunity to shine solo. But the idea of utilizing these characters as props, I think, is super important also. Let's see here. I'm trying to think what else. About the role of that games might play in the shared universe. Gunn says it's not like we're going to have a Superman movie come out and have the Superman game come out. It's more like we'll have the Superman film come out, and then maybe 2 or 3 years later, we have the Supergirl movie come out. So, what's the story in between there? Is there a crypto game that we can play in between them? Something that's still set in the world with these characters, but it's its own thing. We want to give the prominence to the game, certainly that they deserve. So it feels like it's going to be fill in the blanks in regards to what these games are like. How do you feel about that as a gamer?
I like it. I think it's smart that they don't want to make any announcements yet because the big thing with games is that they have a long development process. So I feel like you can have games that are like in that universe, but you don't want to make any big plans for it to be the big tie-in for like an upcoming movie or something like that because there's always going to be pushback with video games. There's always going to be development delays. So I would say that the smart route to go with this, at least for the first game, just to test the water, see how it goes. I'd say they should really keep the game very standalone in that universe, of course, but don't rely on this to set up something that's going to be going on in the future because like there's a lot of things that can go wrong in game development.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
Um, Whether Matt Reeves' Batman films will continue. They say yes, Matt is working on the Batman Part 2, which he thinks of as a Batman crime saga that also includes the Penguin TV series. The Batman is its own thing. Matt's hard at work on it. He came in and pitched us some amazing ideas the other day. So our plan is for that to continue. He also says, Peter Safran says, the Batman's not a stepchild. It's all under DC. We are fully invested in the success of the Batman, just like we are with everything else. And it says everything's going to be balanced. So the Brave and the Bold is not going to be coming out in the same 6 month period as the Batman.
They're not
So
going to
I
pull
think
a
that,
Hercules, thankfully, where there was
yeah,
there was one Hercules movie that came out, then 4 months later you got the wrong
yeah,
Hercules.
yeah. It was so close together. It was crazy. Um, about the Jason Momoa Lobo rumors. James Gunn says Jason will not play two characters. Safran says it's too early to say. Jason always thought Aquaman was a trilogy in his own mind, but he also loves Lobo. He's been very clear about that. He's never going to play two characters. But then Gunn says, but we'll figure that out after Aquaman 2. So you're telling me it's
Smart.
still possible. Like
Yeah.
it's still possible. Okay. So we'll see how that goes.
It is, yeah, it is kind of interesting. I think they want to wait for the success of Aquaman 2 because like Aquaman 1 is like their best-selling DC movie. And I think they're gonna wait and see if they can if Aquaman 2 is going to have that same success. I think if we see like a drop in tickets, then very likely they'll just reboot the Aquaman going forward. But I think if Aquaman 2 does as good as Aquaman 1 or even better, I think then expect to continue seeing Jason Momoa as the Aquaman in the future
That's
in the
Aquaman.
DCU. That's my
Y'all,
prediction.
yeah, I mean, you might be onto something there, Stuart. On whether the animated movies from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment will continue, Gunn says we're dealing with all that. Some of that stuff will continue as Elseworlds, but a lot of that stuff we're starting to bring into animation. So that will have things that are connected with it. I think there have been a lot of really marvelous DC cartoons, so we're going to keep moving forward with that. So I don't
Hmm.
expect them to stop making those. Um, it does say on whether or not they had to make changes to the Flash movie. He says we had input on it for sure, but there's nothing we had to do in order to set up our universe. He says we're very close to Andy Muschietti, the director and the producer of the Flash, and Andy's going to be doing more stuff with us. He eventually went on to say later in the interviews, he's seen the Flash and he thinks it's the greatest superhero movie ever. And that's bold coming from a guy who made Guardians and Guardians 2 and the Suicide Squad, some pretty good movies themselves. And if he's saying that about the Flash, I feel like that's just a connective tissue for the Flash movie. Despite what we want to admit about Ezra Miller, Warner Brothers executives have been mentioning forever how great this movie is. And to kind of hear that from somebody like James Gunn, and it's the greatest superhero movie he's ever seen. I think that speaks volumes, Stuart.
Yeah, like I said, if it's coming from James Gunn, this gets me even more hyped for the Flash.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. And then the writers that help put and build this story and universe, he says we have Tom King. He's been my partner throughout all of this. He was giving me answers to shit before I took the job. So it's me, Tom King, Crystal Henry, who worked on Watchmen, Christina Hodson, who wrote The Flash, Drew Goddard, who you probably know. I think he was part of the Daredevil series also, and some other great content. And Jeremy Slater, who just did Moon Knight series. That's the group of people we've been meeting with and putting all of this together. And Stuart, I'm a sucker for writers' rooms. The idea of putting together a writers' room to me just means we really thought this shit out, guys. We're really not just crossing our fingers and praying to God that this certainly works. Like we're literally mapping this out with some of the best creative minds when it comes to writing that is currently out there right now. And so for them to kind of all come together and put together this 8 to 10 year plan, I think speaks volumes. And I also think that this is another affirmation that these movies are not going to feel just all James Gunnish, you know, while maybe some of these characters and selections of what movies are coming out, which characters to use may be in James Gunn's mind. I do think the idea of having a writer room together does give you different perspectives, different points of views, and just allow tonally for all of these movies to not quite feel like it's just James Gunn writing again. You know what I mean? I do think that this will certainly shake things up a little bit. But how do you feel about them putting together a writer's room?
Yeah, I think that's a very smart like first step you should take when, especially when you're developing an entire universe and trying to plan out who's going to be in charge of what aspects and things like that. Tom King as writer, I've read a few of his comic books. I really like a lot of them. One in particular that always kind of stood out to me was Heroes in Crisis. It was
Mm.
one that I think had a very strong setup and a very strong like just overall premise. The thing that I didn't like about it, of course, I think a lot of Flash fans will, or specifically Wally West fans will agree, is I think the ending was absolute garbage. But that being said, he definitely knows what he's doing when he's not being like when when he's not having like people from DC like breathing over his shoulder. I think that's when he's at his best, is like when DC gives him a lot more free range and things like that. So seeing that like James Gunn loves to get writers a lot more free range, I do think him and James Gunn working together is a great combo.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think he's got some really great. I think we've seen some great content from all these people within recent years, and I think he surrounded himself with a great brain trust, if you will. So Lucasfilm, please take note. Take
Mhm.
note. So we'll see how it goes. And then last but not least, this will be the last thing that we really discuss here, unless you guys have other questions that maybe you guys might need some clarity on the difference between DC Studios projects. And this is something that we just talked about here. You know, Gunn says, even though this is all a connected universe, it's really important to me that the individual writers and directors on the project give their own self expression to it, just like they do in the comics.
Mhm.
Everything doesn't always look the same, everything doesn't always have the same expression. Different artists bring remarkably different looks, feels, and tones. This is not the Gunverse. You know, I want each project to have the feeling of the individual artist that's working on it and give them a lot of freedom as long as it works to create something special. Because what I found through Marvel, what wasn't exciting was when movies were tonally the same. What was exciting was when you had something like Guardians come out and everyone was like, how is this raccoon going to be dealing with the God of Thunder? That's going to be weird. But when you actually see the mashup happen, that's what makes it so fun. So to see tonally incongruent things come together is part of the fun of all of this. So again, I think it just goes to show not all these movies will feel like a James Gunn movie whatsoever. They are going to feel distinct to whoever is certainly writing them. And I hope that that definitely, um, puts an end to maybe some people's fears that it's like, oh, I'm maybe not a fan of the way that James Gunn writes his movies or directs his films. He won't be doing that for all of these particular projects. So I do think that's something to not worry about so much.
I also I find it funny they keep using the Thor and Rocket Raccoon
Rocket Raccoon.
example, but man, I think there are better examples in the MCU. Like I think the
Yeah.
Star-Lord and Iron Man meeting each other was way more like tonally like different between the two of them.
Yeah.
And then also my favorite is Groot and Rocket Raccoon meeting with Steve Rogers. Like I think
Oh
that
yeah.
was probably like one of my favorites because you take a guy, comes from like the more grounded World War II era, and then now you wake him up in the future where suddenly there's a talking tree and a talking raccoon.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great comparison. I think those are definitely much better examples for them to have used. And then last but not least, they did admit that Superman and Lois will have one or two more seasons left. So that's something to definitely look forward to. He says it's a show that everybody likes, and so it's gonna keep going for a little bit. I mean, that's pretty much all that they had to say. Although it does say that Gunn and Safran were also asked about the fate of the upcoming CW series Gotham Knights. Neither had any comment. Like,
I
like if
mean,
there's any show that feels like the redheaded stepchild, it feels like Gotham Knights. Like the fact that they didn't even make a comment to it makes me think that they looked at each other like that's a show that's being made. We have that show. Somebody made that show. Oh well, okay. We don't know anything about it, guys. Like,
yeah, I think it was like, wait, it hasn't been canceled already. Oh, but all
yeah, I
serious,
know.
all seriousness though, like with Gotham Knights, I'd probably do the same thing because again, we don't like, even though I've been very negative whenever I talk about it because it looks bad, we still don't know. Like maybe it'll actually be amazing.
Maybe
I
it'll be
doubt
good.
it, but there's a possibility. So it's like I wouldn't want to make a decision on whether or not to continue or cancel something before it even airs. So smart on them.
Yeah.
I will, however, be the devil's advocate on one part when they were talking about Superman and Lois. So they said that like kind of they could see going strong for like one or two more seasons. The big thing though is that unless they themselves are the ones that decide to renew it going forward, they're still, I wouldn't say that Superman and Lois is necessarily safe because the overall decision on whether or not that show goes forward is going to be up to the CW, which of course
CW.
seems to be, every time you look up articles about the CW, it's constantly about how they're cutting costs even more and
Mhm.
more. So, I would say this isn't bad news, but I wouldn't necessarily call this like good news. Like, oh, the show is for sure going to keep going.
Yeah, because I literally just read an article that said the CW is gutting more scripted television shows. So it's like, damn, okay. So we'll see if they. And I even heard somewhere that it's like $5 million an episode for Superman and Lois or some crazy shit like that too. And I
Yeah.
just don't even know if the CW has that type of money to be making that show. So we'll see. Maybe it's something that they move to HBO Max at the end of this season if the CW doesn't want to run it. But they clearly are aware that people really enjoy that show. So it seems hopefully we'll get more wherever it might find its home at. So definitely look forward to
And
that, guys.
And yeah, James Gunn, if you're one of our 9 viewers, which I highly, highly doubt, and the show gets canceled on the CW, if you renew it on HBO Max, you will be my hero. Not that you aren't already.
But yeah, guys, that is our rundown and breakdown of the DCU film slate. I'm really excited for a lot of these projects, man. Some of them I really have no idea how it's going to be pulled off, even though I have a top three that I'm looking forward to the most. There's still easily two or three other projects on this list that I'm like, man, I'm kind of interested in them, honestly. So should be interesting to see how it all comes together. But I'm a big believer in James Gunn. And I do feel like maybe the tides are turning a little bit, not to say that the MCU is uh, all of a sudden become trash or anything, but people have phase 4 has definitely shown some people's colors in regards to thinking maybe it's slowing down a little bit, maybe not necessarily pleased. This is the opportunity for them to strike while the iron is hot for the DCU and hopefully pick up some people that are interested in something that's new, different, and unique. So we'll see what happens. M Knight Hero, what's up, Mike Knight? He says, "Hope replace Ezra Miller Flash for someone else. He doesn't deserve it." Look, I will say one of the things that they were very open about in the let me see if I can bring it back up here one more time. Hollywood Reporter, DCU Slate. There was a section in here that talked a little bit about the Ezra Miller stuff. Let me just point out what he does say about Ezra Miller. The one thing I will say this, Stuart, going through this article, I really appreciated Gunn's just outright honesty, bro. Like he just hits them over the head with truth after truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hearing that he's actually ruffled some feathers already with some of the comments that he's kind of made in regards to this article. But I do feel like there sometimes you got to be truthful and say things that people probably don't want to hear. And so some of these is exactly what this is what he says in regards to that. He also said 4 leads of those films could potentially return to their roles in the DCU projects down the road. There's nothing that prohibits that from happening. Among those actors is Ezra Miller, the troubled star of The Flash, who has found themselves at the center of several criminal investigations. Safran said the executive remained hopeful. Miller is on a path to betterment. Ezra is completely committed to their recovery. We are fully supportive of that journey they are on right now. When the time is right, when they are ready to have that discussion, we will all figure out what's the best path forward. But right now, they're completely focused on their recovery. And our conversations with them in the last couple of months, it feels like they are making enormous progress. So when I read this, Stuart, this still screams to me like, hey, we may be open to the conversation to happen. We're not at that point yet, right? Like he still clearly has to prove himself, and hopefully that his recovery certainly continues. And then they even mentioned like that's a conversation that we'll have when we get to that point in time. But it seems like while they're open to it, they're not fully committing to his return, but they're at least open to talking to him at some point in time. But that can easily change. So this just felt like a very non-committal answer to me when I read it. But how do you read it though?
Fully agree. I don't think they fully decided what's going to be going on moving forward with Ezra Miller. I think there's going to be a few factors, not just on their recovery, but also just like the financial success of the Flash as well. There was also like it was kind of funny because there was also another thing someone asked about like with Zachary Levi because of a tweet that he did, and James Gunn made a I'm gonna kind of side with James Gunn on this one. You can't just fire people because you disagree with them. You had the actress that played Shuri in Black Panther 2, and it's like, you wouldn't have gotten that amazing performance if like, we just decided to fire her because again, we just disagreed with her. So I think like, yeah, it's kind of going to be the same thing, the same thing going forward with that. But again, I personally, if I was in charge, Ezra would be that, exception, because obviously it's not just about their opinions on stuff. It's about the stuff that they've actually done about physically harming people and that kind of thing. So, I kind of hope overall, like, I just think it's irresponsible if they keep them around. So I think it would be the smarter decision to just kind of like let them go, but we'll wait and see how it all plays out. I am happy to hear that Ezra Miller is getting help. So I really hope it works out for them in the long run.
Yeah, I hope it works out for them too. Because I am I am a believer in second chances, but I do think that people should have the opportunity to find the recovery and the help that they certainly need. But just because he does that and maybe he holds himself accountable or is held accountable for the things that he does, I still find it super volatile to have him as a Flash because you just never know. And if you've got somebody like that that's attached to a big money making franchise, I just don't know if that's a risk I personally would take. But again, it seems I think the fact that they said what they said about Zachary Levi and didn't say that about Ezra Miller, I think shows that they are very much kind of not really sure yet what to
Mhm.
do with that situation. Because you're right, James Gunn does go on to say, he says, actors and filmmakers that I work with are going to say things that I agree with and things that I don't agree with. I can't be changing my plans all the time because an actress says something that I don't agree with. At the same time, if someone is doing something that is morally reprehensible, that's a different story, and we have to take that into account. And again, I think because of how they answered this question compared to the Ezra Miller question is, I think they're taking what he's done into an account,
Mhm.
and it's like, hey, if you can prove yourself, we'll see where that goes, but we'll see how how he's held accountable for it. So James Gunn just dropping some truth bombs, man, at the end of the day, which I gotta appreciate. And he also told Henry Cavill he was being dicked around which I thought
Yeah.
was great. He's like, we didn't fire Henry Cavill, we just didn't hire him for this role, and just told him like, hey, bro, the last regime was dicking you around. I mean, who tells Henry Cavill you're being dicked around? Like, I absolutely love that the honesty that this man has.
Yeah. I do like that James Gunn does seem really interested in working with Henry Cavill going forward, even if it's not going to be as Superman. I could definitely see Henry Cavill. There are plenty of DC characters out there that we could see Henry Cavill coming back as. And of course, I don't think we're going to see it within this first chapter because it seems like they really, again, wanting to not be associated with Marvel. And since Marvel is being really heavy within the multiverse currently, I feel like DC really just wants to focus on establishing their universe first. But after their universe gets established, excuse me, I still think it's a huge possibility that we could see Henry Cavill come back in a Elseworld Superman type of storyline or like a Crisis on Infinite Earths type of movie. So may not happen anytime
I didn't think about
soon,
that.
but it could happen.
I think that's a good point. I think, the fact that they said we didn't fire him, it kind of makes me feel like, so there's still a possibility, huh? Like it doesn't,
Mhm.
he may not necessarily be their Superman for the DCU, but that doesn't mean that there's not other opportunities that Henry Cavill could be used elsewhere or pop up as Superman in, like you said, in an Elseworlds movie, right? We got that Red Sun animated DC film. Remember when he's like the Russian Superman or something like that? Shit, what if they hired Henry Cavill for that role? I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities here, and so I think this is why you never burn bridges. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that and I also would really love to see Henry Cavill be the Kingdom Come Superman if they ever were to do that.
Oh God, yes. Oh my God, I would love to see that too, Stuart. Yeah. So sign me up. Sign me up. So we'll see if Henry Cavill pops back up here, guys.
That's awesome. Like right as I said
Yeah.
that, this comment
Yeah.
pops up.
Yeah, I would love to see that. He's teased the Kingdom Come photo on his Instagram before also. So maybe that's something that James Gunn certainly might already have in mind. I think that would be pretty epic. So yeah, not fired. We just didn't hire him for this DCU role that we had. So we'll see what the future holds. But guys, that's everything. I feel like that's everything that we have so far on the James Gunn DCU film and TV slate lineup titled Gods and Monsters. Again, this is just a portion of chapter one. Not all of the titles and stuff have, in fact, been revealed as of yet. But hopefully that answers a lot of your guys' questions. Are you confused by any of this, Stuart, in regards to how it's going to connect to what we have already? Or do you feel like it's pretty self explanatory almost?
I'd say mostly self-explanatory. The only thing I'm kind of curious about is whether or not we're going to get a in-universe explanation of how much of the old DCEU is still canon, or
Mm.
whether or not, that's just going to be stuff that James Gunn mentions outside the universe. But that's just kind of a wait and see. Other than that, though, it seems like he's got a really solid plan going on, and I really hope it works out. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to be one to one. Everything he announced is going to happen because, of course, even Marvel's guilty of this. Some projects just don't end up moving forward for one reason or another, or they get changed into something else. But for the most part, I think he has a solid, good idea of how to start this new universe, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we got Flashpoint, which changes some things, not everything. Blue Beetle is clearly its own thing. I mean, he mentions it doesn't really have any connective tissues to the previous regime. So Blue Beetle can fit perfectly into what they're creating. You've got something like Aquaman. We'll see how that kind of fits into the overall scheme. But after that, that's really when the new DCU starts with Creature Commandos, Waller, which I think would be a nice connection to the past, but also hopefully introducing us to really how some things have definitely changed in this world. And then boom, we've got Superman Legacy, the first true DCU project that begins the new overall story. And I believe from that moment on, they talk about it being all canon, all connected from that point forward. So I think it'll be an interesting transition, to say the least. But guys, listen, if you have any unanswered questions, definitely let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below after this video airs. We definitely want to go ahead and continue this DCU conversation with you guys, because there's so much more that I'm sure to talk about and explore as we get new information throughout the upcoming weeks, guys. But that's everything that we know, and hopefully we've got you guys all caught up as well. Marcelino does say God and Monsters is a reference in the animated film Justice League God and Monsters. It's a really good one. You should check it out. Maybe I definitely will. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it was actually animated by the same team behind the Justice League animated series, if I'm not mistaken. The art style is
Yeah,
very
the art
similar.
style. Yeah, very similar for sure. All right, guys, with that out of the way, that's right. We do have other topics to talk about, Stuart. My God, how we forget about that? We'll probably breeze through this one pretty quickly, but we talked about this a little bit last week, that a Michael Jackson biopic was going to be in the works. Antoine Fuqua will, in fact, I believe he worked on The Equalizer, if I'm not mistaken. The most recent movie, Emancipation. I believe that's with Will Smith in it. Also, he's going to be tackling a Michael Jackson biopic. I've been a really big fan of musical biopics, especially as of lately. Was a big fan of Elvis. Really enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody. And when it comes to Michael Jackson, I'm certainly hoping that they're able to capture that same type of magic as well as truth behind who he certainly was as a person. But one of the biggest questions we had after that announcement was, who was going to play the King of Pop? Well, Stuart, we definitely have our answer this week, as they have, in fact, officially cast their Michael Jackson. And believe it or not, it is actually his nephew. Jafar Jackson is set to play the King of Pop in the Antoine Fuqua directed biopic. So they're going directly to the family in order to go ahead and bring Michael Jackson to life here. It says it's an exclusive report. Michael Jackson will be played by late icon's 26-year-old nephew, Jafar Jackson. Fuqua just posted a confirmation on Instagram. The singer and songwriter is the son of Jermaine Jackson, who is actually the brother of Michael and a member of the Jackson 5. Jafar has been singing and dancing since he was 12 and showcased himself singing tunes from Sam Cooke to Marvin Gaye, along with originals as well. So, yeah, guys, we have ourselves our Michael Jackson here in Jafar Jackson. So, look, I'm not too familiar. I don't know if this guy has any acting chops under his belt, but I do think Antoine Fuqua can certainly help out with that. But considering that he's a singer and a dancer as well, I think this article even posted like a quick video of one of his music videos. I almost kind of think he sounds a little bit like Michael as well. He's got some great moves. So it should be interesting to kind of see how he brings his uncle to life. Do you think that's going to be weird for him, Stuart, to have to like play his uncle on the big screen?
I'm not sure, but I mean, it worked well. I mean, wasn't an uncle; it was actually a father son, but it worked well for Straight Outta Compton. So we'll see how it works for
Ah,
the Michael Jackson biopic. I will say this though, like in terms of looks, I think they definitely nailed it. Definitely can
yeah.
see the family resemblances between the two. So this is something we'll have to wait and see, because I'm looking right now on his IMDb, and so far the only things he's credited for are some music archives, so like probably using some of the songs in different movies and TV shows. But yeah, this is going to be his first acting performance, so we'll see how he does.
And if anything, I'm kind of glad that you brought up the idea, like he looks just like him, or he's pretty close in resemblance. I mean, yeah, I definitely do agree with you there, just looking at the photo alone. But now that I come to think about it, I'm sure he knew his uncle relatively well. And I also think, even if he didn't know, say, some of the dark secrets or some of the situations that Michael certainly found himself in, I do think, because he's part of the family, he's probably got his family's perspective and points of view on sort of on his uncle's life. And so I do think that as an actor or somebody that is looking to be an actor to have that sort of knowledge and the people around that knew how he acted, knew some of the things that were going on in his life. I gotta think just as a source of information for him to learn on how to perform and act like his uncle. I think that's as close as you can get to the action. You know what I mean? In order to be educated on who you're going to be playing as an actor.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see, guys. Let us know your thoughts in regards to this. Jafar Jackson, the nephew of Michael Jackson, will in fact be playing the King of Pop. This is definitely a biopic I'm looking forward to because growing up in the 80s and 90s, man, I was such a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I still am till today. Like I still play his music. I mean, I feel like it just never gets old. It's just music that feels like can really stand the test of time. Like the fact that people still play Thriller, not just on Halloween, and this music video was done like just years ago, like decades ago. I think just shows the type of musical genius that he certainly was. So I'm hoping that they just tell his truth as best as they can here.
I forgot if I brought this up, but there's this place I used to go cow skating a lot, like or rollerblading a lot, and yeah, the way they would kind of end the night is it would always end with them playing the music video for Thriller.
Nice, man. I like it. Yeah, man. I feel like Michael Jackson's music just continues to play well past his passing. So hopefully it's music that will stand the test of time. But guys, let me know your thoughts. What are you looking forward to when it comes to the Michael Jackson biopic? Do you think Jafar Jackson is certainly a good choice for it? Did you have somebody else in mind? Are you worried with his lack of acting experience? Certainly go ahead and let us know your thoughts in the comment section box below.
I wonder if they're going to include a scene where he develops the music for Sonic 3.
Wait, what? He did Sonic 3 music?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, bro. I did not even know that.
Yeah, that's why in the most recent re-release for the Sonic collections, they re-released like Sonic's 1, 2, 3 and CD. A lot of the music unfortunately has changed because they couldn't continue getting the license for
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks, man. I didn't even realize that. That's a cool little tidbit of information though.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let us know your thoughts on the Michael Jackson biopic in the comment section box below. And with that out of the way, we'll move on to our next topic as we go from one Michael to another. Michael B. Jordan's back in the news, guys. We're getting ramped up and excited for the upcoming Creed film that's set to go ahead and drop this March. In fact, we wind up getting ourselves some brand new photos, posters this week as we got Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan showcasing their physiques, getting ready for a major beatdown here in Creed 3. They also highlighted another poster for us. So March 3rd, guys, we're less than a month away from Creed 3 hitting the theaters. And while we certainly have that film to definitely look forward to, according to Michael B. Jordan, there is plenty more on the way. What you got?
Bring up that first poster again. Man, that just their physique and just how pissed they look at each other. I feel like
his jaws clenched.
Yeah, I feel like a boxing ring wouldn't be. I feel like being outside a boxing ring and watching this match wouldn't be safe. I feel like you would need to be even farther away from that. Like I feel like we're gonna get like this looks like some Dragon Ball Z kind of fights are about to go down.
It's fun. It's so funny you mentioned that because I believe I read an article where Michael B. Jordan did say that some of the boxing sequences in here were going to take influence from anime fights. So I wonder if it's all about like camera direction and camera placement and stuff. Like I wonder if they're gonna, when I think of anime, I think of just some really cool close-up shots of like a fist coming in, with like the lines shooting behind it, like I do wonder, like when he talks about anime influence, how's that going to affect this movie? I'm pretty hyped for it.
Well, like a lot of times in anime fights, they're very specific on techniques that they use and what their advantage and disadvantages are. So I wonder if you're going to get something like that, like him trying to learn his opponent's movesets and decide what movesets for him would be the best to go against him, that kind of thing.
The only issue I have with this poster is I hate the fact that they deep fake Michael B. Jordan's face onto my body. Like like, who took this picture of me when I had my shirt off? Like, I
Okay,
really,
sure, right,
really
whatever.
disappointed. But let's get into the Creed news because Michael B. Jordan says, look, we're not done with 3, man. We're not done with just 3. Creed 4 confirmed. Michael B. Jordan wants to expand it. He says, with Creed 3 on the horizon this March, fan of Michael B. Jordan's film series can already get excited for even more. Jordan confirmed that Creed 4 is for sure, and more Creed spin-offs could be possible too. It says, when asked if there were any plans for Creed 4, potentially spin-offs, Jordan confirmed Creed 4 and added, I just want to expand the Creed verse within reason, but definitely expect other things around Creed for sure. And so, yeah, this movie comes out March 3rd. It's his directorial debut. The series will take place as an extension of the Rocky films and follow Adonis Creed through his boxing career. So yeah, a lot of things to certainly look forward to here. I guess my question, Stuart, would be, um, you know, I have no problem with the Creed 4. I think that sounds pretty incredible if you ask me. Look, Rocky wind up getting what, 6 films to himself before we got introduced to Adonis. I could easily see 5 or 6 films from the Creed property, and especially because now that we don't have Sylvester Stallone in it anymore, this feels like an Adonis Creed franchise now. And I do think, especially with him giving his directorial debut here, if this film really does well, I can easily see another trilogy sort of beginning here, like Creed 3, 4, and maybe 5, where it's really just focused on Adonis, really him telling his story and no longer an outlet for the Rocky Balboa sort of character. So I think he's going to really inject some new energy into this particular franchise. I think all the trailers have been incredible in regards to just showcasing how personal this storyline truly is going to be for Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan. And I'm hoping that that energy carries over into more stories being told by Adonis. So while I am cool with the idea of a Creed 4, him already having it in mind, there is a question of spinoffs, Stuart. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, where would you go with a spinoff here with what we've already kind of been established, right? Like, will Jonathan Majors at the end of this movie wind up being so popular that maybe we give him a movie next or a TV series? Maybe there's more future plans down the road that haven't been revealed yet that will get a spinoff. But right now, it feels a little bit too early for me to be fully behind the idea and concept of a spinoff when I really feel like the only main character I've truly have cared about so far is Adonis. But do you think that can change? And what do you think about him confirming a Creed 4?
Creed 4 I think is awesome, and yeah, like you said, Rocky got 6 movies. I don't see any reason why we can't get, at least 6 Creed movies as well. The franchise is going strong, so why not? I'm also not even against the idea of like a spinoff per se, as long as it's not something that they're trying to set up right away in Creed 3. If it's something that we see like later on going into Creed 4, then yeah, I'm like not opposed to it. I just hope that it doesn't turn into movies being made just so they can set up the spinoffs, basically. That's like my own worry. The other thing too is so for 2 reasons, I think I really hope like Creedverse doesn't become like the official name for it. Reason number 1, Rocky came first, so I think like it'd be like calling the Arrowverse the Flashverse, you know what I mean? Reason number 2, I don't know why Creedverse just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way Rockyverse does. I think like Rockyverse has like a much more fun flow to it, but that's just me. And that's also even assuming like they actually go through with the spinoff, so there's even a chance that that may not even happen. But yeah, loving the first 2 movies, so obviously, and then everything that we're seeing from Creed 3 looks amazing. So Creed 4, a Creed 4 announcement, I'm all for it. Even if Creed
Yeah,
3
and
ends up not being too good, you still got 2 great movies out of 3. So a 4th movie, like giving them another chance with a 4th movie, still, seems like it could work.
Yeah, I mean, unless Creed 3 just bombs at the box office, I mean, I could definitely see a fourth one certainly coming at some point in time. I did laugh a little bit when you mentioned that you still feel it's the Rocky verse. To a certain extent, I definitely would agree with you. But like when it comes to Creed 3 now, this feels like its own entire thing. Like I feel like for me at least, I feel like the Rocky verse definitely ended at Creed 2, but now we're kind of going into Adonis certainly establishing something for himself, which I'm a really big fan of. So I get the idea maybe at this point on, considering it the Creed verse, I don't necessarily know if I should I don't necessarily know if I should put 1 and 2 in the Creed verse as of right now. I feel like this is the beginning of the Creed verse, and everything else that came before was still part of Rocky's. But maybe our viewers have a different perspective, because Creed 1 and 2 can get kind of fishy. You know what I mean? Like where would you place both of those? Some people may even put like Creed 2 in part of this Creed verse, where we got a little bit less Sylvester Stallone, his passing sort of thing, and really establishing um, Adonis on his own. But I think Rocky verse certainly had its time for me personally, at least.
I don't know. I'd kind of disagree with that because I feel like Creed 2 felt like it was a lot more Rocky and Creed and like a little bit less of Creed,
I
whereas
guess that's
Creed
true,
1.
because we did have Rocky's story still connected with Drago. So you're right.
Yeah, whereas Creed 1, it felt like Rocky was just the mentor and nothing else, but Creed 2, it, like, kinda felt like Rocky was a huge part of the story. But yeah, going into Creed 3, I am really excited to, see, like, what it's gonna be like now that they don't have, Rocky, in the picture anymore. Now it's gonna be, like, Creed having to kind of, like, hold the franchise on his own, which he definitely has shown he can do from the previous 2 movies, so I'm really excited. And then also like how we kind of brought up this before, like other times talking about Creed 3, the fact that the first movie that we have without Sylvester Stallone is going to be also the first movie that he directs. So this is going to be the official like first like just Creed on his own type of movie.
Yeah, and there's something about that that really is exciting for me, and I'm really glad he's getting this opportunity to showcase what he's everything that he's learned in his career so far. So should be some good stuff. But yeah, everything I've seen from the trailers just shows me, man, this is going to be a damn good movie. So
Oh
March
yeah.
3rd, guys, March 3rd, mark your calendars. Creed 3 is certainly going to be
Ah,
here.
I freaking love that. Not the second one, but I love that first
Love that first
poster.
one.
I got to see
Yeah.
if I can get a hold of that.
Oh, yeah, they definitely mean mugging each other. And then last but not least, guys, our last story of the day. We're going to transition to another popular franchise that feels like its momentum is just beginning here, guys. We got John Wick 4 that we're going to be talking about, because Keanu Reeves this past week has been in the news just hyping up his John Wick franchise and everything that we can certainly look forward to. The first article that we're going to talk about here is the action that's going to be happening in this particular movie, from apparently what they're calling Car Fu, along with Donnie Yen making his appearance in here. I feel like the Keanu Reeves Keanu Sans has definitely continued. John Wick 1 was great. John Wick 2 certainly upped the ante, where I feel like people started maybe paying attention a little bit more to this franchise. John Wick 3 just really just blew it up into something so grandiose that everybody and their mom is now sort of attached to this John Wick franchise. And now it feels like, man, we're really even continuing this momentum, just jumping on board with it as this franchise just continues. And we've got John Wick 4 that's going to be dropping this year. The idea of this movie sort of, or this franchise picking up steam sort of after its first trilogy, is bananas to me, but people want more. So this is what when people want more, you got to up the ante, and Keanu Reeves and them are not about to disappoint. So let's talk about this, because John Wick is out here promising that chapter 4 will have the most action yet, including a huge Car Fu sequence. I don't even know what that means, but we're about to find out. It says John Wick 4 will stretch the franchise's iconic action set pieces further, and this is a brand new exclusive photo of Donnie Yen just looking absolutely incredible. Is that a cane in this hand and a gun in another one? Am I seeing that right, Stuart? I can't even tell. Um,
um
Is he blind?
I'm only just now wondering that. Like, I feel like I should have figured that out if that is the case, because we have seen him with those same glasses on in the trailer. He might be.
Holy, I thought
Oh
Homeboy would just.
wow.
I thought Homeboy just thought he looked good in shades. But now I'm starting to think with one hand he's got the gun, and then the other one there does look like a cane. I'm what like, dude, is this like a Matt Murdock? Is Keanu Reeves about to face Daredevil in this movie? That would be bananas. That would be bananas. But it does say um the chapter 4 will stretch the franchise's iconic action set pieces even further. Not only will it take the martial arts to the next level with judo and jiu-jitsu practitioner Jave Camarillo, Reeves also boasted his driving skills for a full throttle set piece that takes place in the shadow of the Arc de Triomphe. He says John Wick 4 has the most action of any of the John Wick films, which is saying a lot. It's more by a good margin. It's a big show. So it's not like maybe one additional action set piece in here. No, Homeboy's boosting about it being a lot more action by a good margin. The actor adds John Wick 4 was the hardest physical role I've ever had in my career so far. They really trained me up to be able to have what we call the toolbox. A key tool that Reeves was required to hone for Chapter 4 was his stunt driving. With the film set to reintroduce car fu to the series in the show-stopping style, we took the car driving to the next level, which I really enjoy. There's 180s, forward into reverse 180s, reverse into forward 270s, drifting. So it's really fun to get a chance learning those skills and to play. I don't know why, Stuart, when I think of car fu, I think of like Keanu Reeves in his car, door completely gone. He's driving and he's got one foot out, kicking the person in the next car over. Like, I don't know why I think of him trying to drive and literally have hand to hand combat out at the same time with somebody in the car next to him. That's what I envision. But then I all of a sudden envision like a Hot Wheels game where you just got all these cars spinning into each other like fucking bumper cars and just getting a ton of damage. Like, I have no idea what Carfu is, but that's what I envision in my head. What do you think though when you envision Carfu?
Yeah, that the Hot Wheels part where it's like
The
cars
Hot Wheels
going
thing?
up against each other. Seems like I can't, I know I've seen this before, but I can't remember what specific movie this is from. But I know I've seen like one where it's like a car going forward while there's a motorcycle going at them like from the other angle, and then the car like basically does like a hard brake while turning, so then the car like flips, causing the trunk of the car to like hit the motorcycle and the motorcycle to flip over, like those kind of things where it's like you
Uh-huh.
can have a fight between cars or just between vehicles in general. um I know I've seen that exact scene from something, and I cannot remember what I've seen it from. But I expect a lot of that, which would be extremely expensive, very challenging to film. But if anyone can do it, it's the stunt coordinators for John Wick. In fact, I think we got something similar to that in John Wick 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's why I said maybe reintroducing Carfu, because I do think we have kind of seen elements of that in the second one. I think when he was trying to get his car back or something like that too, and we had a bunch of car chases and whatnot. It also says another key to enhancing John Wick 4 stunts is the introduction of Hong Kong action icon Donnie Yen as a new character, Kane. Oh, look, Kane, and he's holding a cane. I get it. Far from a cut out. Oh, far from a cut and dry antagonist, he's an old buddy of John Wick's, an ex-assassin as well. According to stunt coordinator, Yen brings master level fighting abilities to his films, meaning he's not an actor that you have to train for a specific fight. He is a great actor who is also a trained fighter. His ability to enhance the choreography through his own creativity is world class. When you add that to the many years of John Wick training that Keanu Reeves has invested, you end up with something very special. And he says, "Oh my God, man, it's banana cakes." So they're pretty excited to see the martial arts action and mastery of Donnie Yen up against Keanu Reeves' John Wick training, and he's no slouch. He's a martial artist in his own right. Keanu Reeves certainly is, even before picking up this John Wick sort of extra training that he's been going through. But I cannot wait to see these two incredible actors and just martial artists go toe to toe. This is the type of stuff, as a martial artist fan, that I die for, to kind of see like the people that are at the top of their game facing off against each other on film. Man, I absolutely love it. It reminds me of like some old school Bruce Lee shit, man, when he would bring in some of the top notch fighters from all around the world and give them these big platforms to showcase style against style. That's exactly what it reminds me of. And John Wick is replicating that for modern day, I personally think. So I'm hyped for this.
Same. The John Wick franchise has not let me down yet. Hearing that there's gonna be more fight scenes though, like, man, like, I'm excited to hear that, but also like, I've seen movies where it's fight scene after fight scene after fight scene, and it's fun at first, but then
And
it
no
kind of
substance.
but then it gets boring after a while. So I really hope that's not what happens in John Wick 4. I hope there's a lot of good substance in between, but I do looking forward to seeing how much they try to one up themselves after John Wick 3.
Yeah, I will agree with you. I think if there is a worry, like when you say, hey, we've upped the action, I'm like, oh, that's cool. But then when you say by a huge margin or by a good margin, that's what I'm like, has action overtaken this movie to where it's like the substance is gone, the story is barely there, and you've just become a gigantic, like, just Michael Bay film all of a sudden, where you're just blowing shit up and having fight scenes to have them? Or are they meaningful? Do you know what I mean? And so as long as they continue with the substance, which I think has been proven great for the first 3 films for John Wick, and you up the ante, then that's cool. But I will agree with you, Stuart. Them saying that does make me worry just a little bit, despite my anticipation for the action, for sure. And then
Man,
last but not,
I just want to see, like, at the very end, after all this action, you just get like a completely wrecked, destroyed city, and then one person just kind of goes, why'd they have to steal his dog, or why'd they have to kill his dog?
yeah, just a full connection back to the first one, like why they pissed them off in the first place.
Yep.
And then he also talks about the idea of spinoffs and the potential for Chapter 5. This is another exclusive photo. It looks like Chad Stileski, I believe, and Keanu Reeves on set. That's a gorgeous set, by the way.
Oh my God,
I love
yeah.
that dinner setup table in front of the Eiffel Tower. It's gorgeous. But it does say we are aware that we have some spinoffs coming later this year. The Continental 3-episode miniseries set in New York Hitman Hotel will air, starring Mel Gibson with Colin Woodell as a young Winston. And then there's Ballerina, in which Ana de Armas stars as Rusco Roma, dance assassin. So it says, directed by Underworld's Len Wiseman, the series will feature one appearance from Keanu Reeves' John Wick. It's a cool story. Reeves tells Total Film. Len Wiseman has a vision, but he's also embracing affectionately the world of John Wick. Ian McShane is in it as Winston, talking about the Continental 3-episode miniseries. So I felt there was a really cool handoff of stewardship, and it was fun to put the suit on again, however briefly. There's a reason for John to be in the Ballerina, very organic, and working with Anna was great. She really loves action, and she really goes at it. So I will say this. I do like that he mentions, however briefly, that he's going to be putting on this suit, just to show that, hey, while I am in this particular mini series, I'm not a big part of it, so that it still allows it to be its own story. But yeah, when it comes to the Ballerina, he's very much going to be involved with Ana de Armas in here. I hear that they have a great action piece together as well. Aside from that, when it comes to a follow-up to John Wick 4, he says it's still officially unconfirmed, but not out of the question. He says, you have to see how the audience responds to what we did. The only reason we had a chance to make these movies is that people have liked what we've done so far. So I think we have to wait and see how the audiences respond to it. Hopefully they'll like it. So John Wick 5 definitely not out of the question, but certainly a wait and see. And I love that Keanu Reeves is given a boost here to some of the upcoming spinoffs. Is there any of these two spinoffs that you're looking forward to the most, the Continental or the Ballerina?
Probably the Continental the most. Ever since like literally the first John Wick movie, I thought like, man, I really want to know more about this like criminal empire. So I've been wanting to see like spin-offs. I've been wanting to see this universe get expanded. So the Continental seems like the perfect opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think for me, I'm actually looking forward more to probably the Ballerina, just because I am a big fan of Ana de Armas, especially coming off of her great performance in the movie Blonde on Netflix. I think has been getting her some attention, and the fact that she's a big fan of doing action pieces. I've read some interviews with her, Ana de Armas, really talking about her being pushed to sort of her physical limit and realizing things that she didn't even know her body was certainly capable of doing, and just coming home with bruises and being sore and stuff. So I definitely appreciate her giving it her all in order to go ahead and stand toe to toe with somebody like John Wick, whether or not they fight in here or they fight alongside each other, sort of like Halle Berry and Keanu Reeves did in John Wick 3, who certainly knows. But I'm really looking forward to the Ballerina out of these two. But I think they've managed to create two great spin-offs, or at least two concepts and ideas for spin-offs to come out of John Wick, because they've done a really good job of just establishing such a much bigger world in this trilogy of John Wick, which I really appreciate, because I don't know if I would be as excited for these had they not done that, you know?
Mhm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts and your levels of anticipation for John Wick 4. Has anything Keanu Reeves said in here hyped you up more for this particular franchise? And which spinoff are you looking forward to the most? Let us know your thoughts in the live chat or the comment section box below. And we'll definitely continue with our conversation with you guys throughout the week, over in our comment section. But Stuart, I think with that out of the way, I think you know what time it is, sir.
It is time for live viewer questions.
And we're going to be getting into your guys' live viewer questions. Again, how do you go about submitting a live viewer question over? It's pretty simple, guys. Just go over to our. I'll go ahead and pull it up for you guys here. Let's go ahead and do this. So if you ever have a live viewer question, let me pull this down here. There we go. Just go over to our main YouTube page, A Plus Hero Report. Hit that subscribe button too, guys, if you haven't done so already. You can see here there is a community tab. Click on that community tab, and you will see a live viewer question from us. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. Newest first, and we'll definitely tackle some of your guys' questions. Whatever questions we don't finish off today, we will go ahead and put into its own individual video later on this week. If not Monday, definitely look for it by Tuesday. So we'll try and get through as many as we can today. Marcelino has the first question, and this one is for you, Stuart. Stuart, you have said countless times that you believe Legends of Tomorrow went from a time traveling show that took itself seriously to a comedic sitcom because the time traveling became too expensive. I kind of personally find that hard to believe, only because I recently watched season 6 and 7, and judging by the amount of props, CGI, actors, set location, makeup, he goes on and on. The show used it almost looks like the same amount used when the show did take itself seriously. Are you sure that the show didn't just change its tone because of other factors? A lot of people say that the fans did not like the serious tone to begin with, and that's what made Legends a bad show to start off with. But changing the tone to be comedic is what made the show better. You sure it wasn't the fan reaction for its change in tone?
I think it might have been a mixture of both. Yeah, I'm fully aware that like I'm definitely not in the majority of people that didn't like the latter seasons of Legends of Tomorrow as much as like the older seasons. But again, it's just like personal preferences. As for the budget, yeah, they definitely get more expensive when it comes to some of the props that they use. But I think in terms of like special effects, and then in terms of the type of costumes that they use, they're not as they don't use the type of costumes that they used to do, kind of like in the older episodes where they would be like, the kind of more expensive superhero costumes. Like you look at the Justice Society of America, for example, and each one of their outfits, while they don't look like they could do well if they were all in their own like individual shows, they do look like they could have like actually been a spin-off show of their own, if that makes sense. um but yeah, like admittingly, like I think a lot of times when I talked about Legends of Tomorrow, I'm kind of like going by how I kind of feel watching the show and not by like what's actually there a lot of times. So there are some critiques that I've probably made that are actually probably objectively incorrect. But yeah, it's just, it all kind of comes down to just personal taste. I personally liked Legends when it was more of a superhero show that, while it never always took itself too seriously, it always had like a lot of comedy to begin with, even from season one. I think it just the comedy kind of the comedy felt more natural, whereas like kind of in later seasons, I don't know, the comedy just wasn't as good as it had been like earlier to me. I think because they did a lot more comedy in later seasons. It just wasn't as funny as the comedy like in earlier seasons. And I'd say the exception, of course, was season five. Season five, I think like that was like the one time where you had that era of Legends of Tomorrow that people really liked and that I kind of agreed with. And I'm not sure why. I can't really say a specific thing that season five did better than seasons 4, 6, and 7, but something about season five, they did something right there. And unfortunately, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, I eventually fell off, unfortunately, I think after like season 3. I don't know what it is. I think I personally miss the superheroing aspect of it. But yeah, yeah, I don't know if that's something I'll ever go back to finish watching, but yeah.
I do stand by that critique, though, that it does feel way less like a superhero show as it keeps going on.
Jessica Fryman says, "Do you think we'll get a 5th season of Young Justice? And which Arrowverse alumni would you like to see on the final season of The Flash?" Um, I do they have a 4th season already of Young Justice, Stuart?
Yeah, 4th season ended a little bit ago.
I think that's a show that might come to an end. Um, I don't know if maybe they'll give us one more season out of it, but I feel like that might be something that eventually ends. And the only reason why I said it is just because with everything that's changing over at the DCU, it does feel like they're cleaning up anything that's outside of what they're currently working on. But maybe Young Justice is something that will survive and become like that Elseworlds tag at some point in time. Who knows? Do you think we'll get a 5th season of Young Justice?
I think it's going to depend on how the Legion of Superheroes show does, if that's even still in development. I think if that does good, then they may
Oh,
do one more renewal.
that's an animation, right? Animation series, I think they mentioned.
Yeah, coincidentally, there's also a movie coming out that's unrelated to the animated show, but like, yeah, there was talks of a I don't think it was connected to the Young Justice universe, but it was meant to be like an animated Legion of Superheroes show for HBO Max. So if that does come out, I think that'll kind of like the success of that might determine if it gets renewed. We do know that the writers of Young Justice do have plans if the show gets renewed. But yeah, like you were mentioning, the DC shakeup, it's like really hard to say. But as for the second part of the question, so looking at the characters that have not been announced yet to come back in the final season of The Flash that I would like to see, my two main ones are Supergirl and Black Lightning. I'd love to see them have like at least a 1 episode appearance.
Yeah, I definitely would love both of them if at all possible. I love me some Melissa Benoist as Supergirl. I really want her to come back. And look, she's got such a great and personal relationship with Grant Gustin as a person. Like, come on, man, do your bro a solid. You know what I'm saying? Like, show up in this final season if you can. And I don't think Cisco is coming back, right? The actor that played Cisco, I don't think he's been confirmed, has he?
Um,
I thought I read
I
somewhere
don't
saying
think
that he
so.
wasn't coming back.
Which is so weird. Like, I get that he's probably busy with other TV shows, but like, man, he just seems like such an important part of the Flash. So it seems so bizarre not to have him like at least like have a 1 episode in the final season.
Yeah, I would be. It would be really strange to me if he doesn't pop up. So I hope he makes his presence felt. Adam Perea over here saying my twin's beard matches his beanie. Thanks, bro. Thanks. It's all that gray. It's all that gray that's coming out now. Let's see here. Who else is next? Ram Jam. Hey, Adam and Stuart, I have a couple questions. Have you read the script for David Yost, Quantum Continuum? If so, what are your initial thoughts on the script? And two, what are your thoughts on Michael Jackson's nephew, Jafar Jackson, is cast to play his uncle? Well, for the second one, because we just talked about it, I'm eager to see the performance that he has. I think he'll definitely nail the singing and the dancing. I've seen a couple of his music videos. He definitely has the moves and the voice for it. But for me, it's really going to be just what his performance is going to be like. And one of the things I just mentioned to Stuart is maybe him being a part of the family. If he's got to do research on his uncle, if he's really got to tap into who his uncle was as a person, he's got the best source of information he could have, right? And that's his family, whether that be Michael's sister and Janet, his brothers, to certainly talk about him a little bit more. I think it'll provide some great insight into him on how to really channel his uncle. I'm sure it's probably bizarre for him to have to play his uncle, but I'm hoping it comes out well though at the end of the day.
Yeah, I
as far
definitely
as
hope so too.
Sorry about that. Adam says Eric Wallace did say Cisco will be returning for the final season. Okay, so that's comforting to know. That's comforting to know. And then have you read the script for David Yost Quantum Continuum? I personally have not read it yet, but I have saved it on my phone. I did download it immediately once David Yost wind up making it available. So the episode 1 script is on my phone. So I definitely will be checking it out sometime here this week. And if anything, I'll probably will actually read through it, and I may end up actually making its own individual video for it to discuss it. But David Yost also mentioned that episode 2, he was going to drop an episode 2 script in February. So we definitely have this month to look forward to seeing what the second episode is going to be like. Have you read it, Stuart?
No, not yet. I actually currently am in the middle of reading another Power Rangers script, one that's like a interesting fan film called
Nice.
Forever Evil.
Ooh, I like the sound of that. But if anything, once I do get the opportunity to read Quantum Continuum, again, I'll probably be doing a video for it. Let's see here. Abase, he's up next. We know that Power Ranger Twitter fandom has been very toxic for a long while now, even since Dino Fury came out. Whatever Hasbro and Simon Bennett does, the fandom are so quickly to be loud and angry. It is really a shame that they don't appreciate all the hard work and amazing things that Hasbro and Simon have already done for the franchise compared to Saban during the past decade. Like when David Yost and Walter Jones were first officially announced to return for the MMPR special, instead of congratulating and being happy to see them come back, the fandom instead began attacking Simon Bennett nonstop when he and Hasbro announced the return of Dino Fury cast for the 30th anniversary season, and that the show itself wouldn't be adapting any Q Ranger footage except for the Zords. Then recently, with the new Hasbro Pulse, the toxic fans once again started fighting Simon regarding the new Ranger suit for Cosmic Fury not being Q Ranger and Amelia becoming our first official full-time female Ranger in a season. The suits in my eyes look really cool and scream space. Anyways, to wrap up, it's such an annoyance that whatever Hasbro does, the toxic minority get all loud and vocal. Besides, by the time we get the new Netflix reboot series, the toxic community can no longer attack Simon since everything will be 100% original. And trust me when I say Abase, they'll just find something else to complain about. Okay? If it ain't Hasbro and Simon, it'll be Jonathan Entwistle, it'll be Jenny Klein, it'll be anybody else that's certainly involved. So there's definitely no stopping them. And I will say this, Stuart, when it comes to the Power Ranger fandom, like I feel like the announcements that we've gotten, I feel like what I have read on Twitter, a lot of people have been really excited for it. Really looking forward to the 30th anniversary, whether that's Cosmic Fury, whether that's the MMPR special. I feel like there's a lot of excitement behind it. I feel like people feel like, hey, we are being spoiled, But I will say this. I do feel like after the first week, maybe after the first week and a half of being congratulatory and happy, the nitpickers come out, man.
Mm-hmm.
And people start really nitpicking at certain details, finding a problem with things, and then it all of a sudden becomes congratulatory to, but you didn't do this right, and you didn't do this right, and I don't really like how you did this. And man, what has turned out to be like the love for Hunter Dino in season 1 and Izzy has now turned into, why is she the Red Ranger? I don't even understand. And like, just it blows my mind to see how we go from congratulatory to just this idea of just finding reasons to bitch and complain all the time, especially before we've even seen anything out of this particular season. It's just like some people just are not satisfied with what you get and always got to find a reason to complain. Am I tripping, or do you feel the same way?
Oh no, I 100% agree with you. It's bizarre to me because
It's so
there
bizarre.
I think a lot of people are just making way too many assumptions also. Like I think the biggest one was when Cosmic Fury was announced, like, the new color scheme, which we kind of already knew that Zato was going to be the White Ranger because of the way that Dino Fury ended. But the fact that people are immediately jumping to the conclusions of, oh, he's getting demoted so Amelia can be promoted to Red Ranger. It's like, why do you think that? Like, there's been nothing to suggest that that's what's going to happen. I think way too many people are just jumping to conclusions. And yeah, I think people, this is why I'm trying to avoid the negativity on Twitter, because I just want to wait and see before critiquing. If people have their complaints after the anniversary comes out, cool, I'll listen to them then. If people have their complaints about Cosmic Fury after it comes out, cool, I'll listen to it then. But like, I'm annoyed that people are already like saying like objectively that these projects are going to be terrible when we still haven't even gotten a trailer for either of them.
For either of them. Yeah. I mean, does it live up to the expectation of like toxic for everybody? No, but I do think that there is an aspect, like if it's not toxic, then it's almost like cynical,
Mhm.
like always trying to find that negative reason. Like, bro, just be positive about something. Like, why do you have to find the need to say something negative about something always? And it's just like the idea of people coming out all of a sudden, I I heard, and I heard people. There was a Simon Bennett post where he posted a message that he had gotten from a fan that was super entitled and very like talking to him like, you got to do this, or Cosmic Fury is going to be ruined and you guys are ruining Power Rangers and stuff. It was just the most bizarre message I had gotten from a fan, and you could see in the Instagram post, or the post that the photo that Simon Bennett posted of his face, his facial expression of being shocked that somebody wrote him this thing, right? Then we got people out here that are talking about, oh, Simon Bennett's lying. He just made up that message. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you think Simon Bennett really has the time to spend to make up some imaginary fan that wants to berate him and tell him he sucks at what he's doing? Like, no, what are we getting on Simon Bennett's case for? Calling him a liar, or that's not a real man. Like, bro, what is happening right now? Like, just be happy. Um,
I
yeah,
didn't
AJ
hear.
AJ says Simon's post was basically him throwing shade and being sarcastic towards the a-holes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's just responding to the atrocity that was this message, and like, oh my god, like this is the type of stuff that he gets probably on a regular basis, that I think Simon Bennett is just putting out to the world, that there are some crazy ass people out there. Like, we have to be better as a society and just as a fandom. And it's okay to be positive about things. We don't have to just crap on every little thing, find little complaints about everything. What's that saying that they have, Stuart? If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Please remember
Mhm.
that shit. Like, you don't have to shit on everything to get your point across. It is okay to be positive sometimes. Like, man, I just don't get it, bro. I don't get it.
A lot of people really like to critique because they think it makes them sound smart, I think. When in
Like, they
actuality,
know better, right?
yeah, exactly. When in actuality, when you like complain about something that hasn't even come out yet, that we still don't know much about, you just kind of make yourself. Now, what I do is I talk about things that kind of concerns me about it, like, okay, this is an aspect that worries about me here, this is an aspect that worries about me here, but I try really hard not to just like see a project and then immediately go, oh yeah, this is gonna suck. If I do that every now and then, I apologize, I try not to, but like,
we all tend to do
yeah,
that. We're not
yeah,
perfect. It happens.
exactly. But like, a lot of these people on Twitter are the kind of people that do this all the time, like it's a normal thing for them. And that's the concerning part.
Yeah, that is definitely a concerning part. Dino Knight says they should be lucky Saban not around anymore.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. So thank you for that, Abase. We got a long one here from Roberto. Dino Thunder Fighting Spirit. He says, this past week I binged all of Dino Thunder, and one of the episodes I still love is Fighting Spirit, which was the episode where JDF returned to Dino Thunder since the episode White Thunder Part 3. Why I love this episode is because it really captured the growth and evolution of Tommy. The entire episode had to do with the main four Dino Thunder team having a very difficult time fighting a new version of the white Pterosaurus monster, which was the companion of the evil White Ranger clone since Triassic Triumph. Even having their Ranger powers taken away from them, seeing Tommy in his coma fighting his past Ranger selves, just seeing Tommy fight past versions of himself was really cool and jaw dropping. He says to end this, Fighting Spirit really was the complete evolution and closure to Tommy's entire life as Power Ranger, and show that he never stopped fighting nor retired after Turbo and Forever Red. This was definitely one of the best episodes in Dino Thunder and the history of Power Rangers as a whole. Watching this episode now also felt a little bittersweet, knowing that Tommy is alive and well in Power Ranger TV universe while JDF himself is no longer with us. The rest of the Dino Thunder team asking him questions about his battle and his past selves in his mind was a great way to end the episode, and was a callback to Legacy of Power from early in the season. Roberto, I'm sorry I didn't get to the middle paragraph here, but I really wanted to get to like the meat of your question and comments. And I got to say, I love the idea of you pointing out that Fighting Spirit was really a complete evolution and closure to Tommy's entire life as a Power Ranger, which I think is proper to say, because after that point we only really see him in cameos. We don't really see him in full-fledged series to learn more about his life or continuing on his bigger legacy. Whereas I think Fighting Spirit is a great culmination of what Tommy did in his past and just the journey that he found himself in and the growth for himself and where he was at in Dino Thunder. And I think Dino Thunder was a great closure, at least for his story arc, and then really cool to kind of see just where he goes from that point on the rest of his life and some of the cameos that he winds up popping up in. So I think you said that perfectly.
Was there ever an explanation of how Tommy never got fired in Dino Thunder? Because he had that whole period where he was stuck in the suit, and so I imagine he wasn't going to class, in that suit. So, and yet
Yeah.
when he comes back, he's like, a teacher again, business as usual.
Yeah, right. Like, how are you not fired from your job, bro? Who was your did they say who his substitute teacher was? I can't remember if they ever showcased the substitute teacher for his classes.
I don't remember. It's been a minute since I've
Oh,
seen Dino Thunder. I'm sure like someone in the
yeah, it's been a
comments will
while.
be like, no, they do explain this.
Um,
But joking
real
aside,
quick.
yeah, I do think this is a really good like analysis of the episode. And yeah, I do agree. Like that was one of my favorite episodes of the season.
Adam says, don't always jump to conclusions unless it's Sony. Yeah, man, I just never trust Sony. But yeah.
But to be fair, we usually, both you and I, we don't necessarily say this movie's gonna suck. We just say we have
Right.
low expectations.
We have low
for it.
expectations.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a huge
And
difference.
we hope that it does well. We definitely
Yeah.
hope that it was. And see, there was a sub. The sub was Anton Mercer. The Rangers covered for Tommy.
Okay, there was an explanation. Got it.
So thank you for that. Carter Matthews says DC shows cancellation and Superman and Lois placement. Since last week's announcement that DC Titans and Doom Patrol were canceled from HBO Max since the whole DC reboot thing, what does this tell you about Superman and Lois' future? Do you think it is next to be canceled, or is it safe to at least get a fourth final season after this upcoming third? And does it still annoy that that Superman and Lois takes place in its own Earth now. Yes, I can't stand that notion. I recall in the final season of Supergirl, no one ever referenced Clark anymore. Makes me wonder if the current continuity of Supergirl, if Clark still exists, or the aftermath of Crisis somehow changed time, where Clark never went into his space pod and crash landed on Earth and adopted by Martha and Jonathan Kent. Yeah, definitely something changed from Crisis. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, it's just so bizarre because, like, the ending of Crisis like perfectly set up Superman and Lois. So for them to like have that huge setup and
Yeah.
then like wait like a season and a half, and then not to mention like the John Diggle cameo, and then like them even mentioning Crisis on Infinite Earths during Superman and Lois. There just like a lot. Like there was a lot in season 1 that heavily implied that it was part of the Arrowverse. So for them to just like out of nowhere be like, oh, and then we're in another universe, like,
It's
and
such
especially with
bullshit, man.
like, a show that otherwise has like some amazing written dialogue, to have like one of the worst written lines of dialogue ever in that moment too.
I swear, man, it just pisses me off. It just pisses me off. I mean, yeah, because even at the end of Crisis, Lois contacts Superman, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
sons, like plural. And I'm like, oh, so they're definitely leading into Superman and Lois. Nope. That's a waste of my time. God, I can't stand that shit. Still makes me mad. But as far as Superman and Lois, look, James Gunn mentions, look, you got maybe at least 1 or 2 more seasons out of the way. Stuart did bring up a good point, though, in the sense of, does CW want to continue to spend money on scripted shows after we literally just, this past week, I think they literally just had an article from the Hollywood Reporter saying the CW to continue to gut scripted television shows, right? So it's like, what we'll see the chopping block. Look, I think if James Gunn and Peter Safran say it's a show that everybody likes, so we would like for it to continue just a little bit longer. If the CW were to cancel it after season 3, I guess for me, it wouldn't surprise me if they were to say, hey, we've got a 4th season and the 5th season ready to drop on HBO Max for you guys, because we clearly know that you guys like this show, despite the CW maybe not wanting to go that direction. I can still see a 4th season coming personally for me, Stuart, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a good possibility. I'm not going to get my hopes too high up, nor am I going to be
Yeah, me
mad
neither.
if they don't continue it after the CW decides to cancel it. But yeah, I do think it is a good possibility because of the show's, you know, popularity. Someone actually brought this up. I think it was Pagey who said that it's still like in their top 20, which is impressive when you think about the
Oh,
fact that it doesn't even air on HBO Max. It airs on the CW, and yet it
true.
still makes the top 20, which is like really hard to do.
Yeah, so if anything, there is a good reason for it to move to HBO Max if that's the case. Yeah, thank you for bringing that update, because I did not know about that at all. Nicole Robertson says, hey, y'all, hope you're all doing well. What do you think of Letitia Wright giving some promising updates on Black Panther 3? And do you think we should get a 3rd film to complete as a trilogy? And do you feel it would feel appropriate, considering we no longer have Chadwick Boseman as the original Black Panther? She does put a article to this, saying she gives a promising update. Let's see what this update is, though. When asked if fans could expect to see a sequel, she thinks it's already in the works, but the team need a little bit of a break. She says, I think it's already in the works. We just had a terrific 2 years of bringing it out, and just everybody just coming together to support it. We need a little bit of a break. We need to regroup, and Ryan Coogler needs to get back in the lab. So it's going to take a while, but I'm really excited for you guys to see that. So yeah, so she says, so I'm manifesting a Black Panther 3. Why not? So it sounds like, whether or not it's fully in the works, that I certainly don't know. But, I think it's one of those things where I think I've even seen Ryan Coogler say, we have to see how the audiences sort of receive this one first, and then we'll go to the drawing board. I don't even know how much Black Panther 2 wind up making at the box office. But I definitely expect there to be another sequel. At least I personally think so. What about you, though?
Oh yeah, everything in Marvel has to have at least a trilogy, and I think Black Panther is no exception. And I think there, there's a lot of controversy between whether or not, they should have recast T'Challa or kept going the way they did. Personally, I don't think there was a right or wrong answer. So I think that if anything, if Marvel wanted to bring back the Black Panther but recast it, I think now with it being like a multiverse thing that they're doing with this phase, they may have like a really good opportunity to do so if that's how they want to kind of like wrap up the Black Panther trilogy. I am really excited to see where they go. I think there was a lot that was set up in Black Panther 2 that could lead to a really epic and also incredibly dark conclusion.
Yeah, I think one of the things I appreciate about Black Panther 2 is that they kind of left the door open, not only for 3, but who's going to be the Black Panther, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Shuri going to return to the role? We saw M'Baku getting ready to have a fight at the waterfall, which usually represents like who's going to be the new king or who's going to be the new leader for Wakanda. So does the winner of that brawl, like who's going to step up to M'Baka? I don't think we saw who the fighter was, but does that lead us to believe that maybe M'Baka becomes the next Black Panther for Wakanda, right? Like, so I do think there's a possibility for a lot of changes and storyline to definitely be taken for the third film. Like the first Black Panther movie, like if we want to look at it from a box office perspective, the first Black Panther movie made $1.3 billion at the box office. When you look at Black Panther 2, it definitely did take a significant hit, but that hit is $842 million worldwide. That's certainly nothing to sneeze at. But, you have a lot of opposing factors against this movie, right? Chadwick Boseman passed away. Your lead is not in this film. You've got a lot of supporting characters that are really kind of now in that role to go ahead and take over the main substance and meat of this movie. So you have a lot of opposing factors pushing back against it. So I think the fact that this movie
And Disney
made
Plus.
and Disney Plus, and I think the fact that this movie made $842 million, I think that should still be looked at very much in a positive light. And so I do think you can at least make one more Black Panther movie just based off of that and the reception from the movie as well. So I do think that there is something that they're probably cooking, but I do think it's going to be a while before we get to that point.
Yeah. And I think like the best setup that they have there, if they want to use like real life American history here to kind of play forward in the MCU, you got the fact that there's a lot of really bad evidence left behind that the Wakandans were responsible for a few things. And so, which we, of course, as the audience know, they weren't. And I'm sure the American government would probably know if they did even a little bit of investigating that it wasn't them. But they still have, important resources that America wants. So are they gonna like turn their head to that evidence that Wakanda wasn't responsible and, just start a war for the sake of getting those resources? That's the big direction I think they're gonna go. That's what I think they really set up for Black Panther 3. And I really, it could be a dark but really epic conclusion depending on how it goes. Oh, I think you're muted.
Oh man, I thought I was gonna get through this episode without accidentally muting myself. Um, so yeah, definitely a lot of great possibilities for a third Black Panther film. So I expect it to happen, but I definitely expect there to be some time before it's certainly announced. I'm sure Ryan Coogler's got to be just exhausted, man, from
Oh
making
yeah.
all these damn movies. Let's see here. Power Rangers Legacy. This is probably our last question, guys, that we tackle for the day. And then from here, after Power Rangers Legacy, whoever's question did not get answered again, maybe that's something I'll work on maybe shortly after this video to go ahead and bring to you guys later on this week. So let's go ahead and dive into this, Stuart. Power Rangers Legacy says Lost Galaxy still holds up extremely well. I still cannot believe that Lost Galaxy was the first post Zordon era season of Power Rangers to have a brand new cast and story, though the show did retain elements from Power Rangers in Space, which were Alpha 5, the Astro Megaship, and the Space Rangers themselves teaming up in the to the 10th Power and Power of Pink, giving us the first annual team ups in the franchise. Just like Power Rangers in Space, the show didn't follow the Sentai source material, which in Lost Galaxy's case, it was another space opera season, whereas Ginga Man was nature-themed Earth-based. I just really love seeing Power Rangers being in space instead of taking place on planet Earth and only being in one city. Another reason why I love Lost Galaxy so much was that it too just like In Space, used a lot of new original footage when it came to foot soldiers, Sting Wingers, and Trakina herself being an American exclusives. Though the show did use the actual Japanese villains like Captain Mutiny and his foot soldiers near the end of the season in Enter the Lost Galaxy arc. I can't talk about Lost Galaxy without mentioning how incredible it was to see Corone return to the show and actually become a Power Ranger, making her the first and only one to be a main villain the previous season, then a Ranger the next season. Her taking over for Kendrick after a sacrifice. When Valerie Vernon went on medical leave due to her unfortunate illness, which I'm so thankful she completely healed and is doing well. The final battle between Trakina still amazes me, where Leo utilizes his battleizer to destroy her by taking a huge blow in the process. Anyways, Lost Galaxy really was and still is one of the best seasons of Power Rangers in history. What are some of your favorite moments from Lost Galaxy, and would you ever like to see them return for one last hurrah, even if it's a comic book form or animation? For me, maybe in comic book form or animation, I'll take it. Lost Galaxy for me was an odd season, Stuart.
Mhm.
I have a love-hate relationship with it. There are moments that I wasn't the biggest fan of it, pretty much because I think it felt very much like it's a standalone season for the most part, in the sense of brand new cast and story. But I also did appreciate the idea of it still retaining some elements from Power Rangers in the past. Like I did like the connective tissues from In Space and being able to see the big crossover event. And I honestly never really would have expected Corone to end up becoming a Power Ranger and a hero. And the way that they executed it, I thought was just beautiful and just perfect, and just really surprising. I mean, Lost Galaxy has one of the most shocking moments in Power Rangers to me, which was, which was the death of Kendricks. And so after seeing that, it definitely blew me away. But for me, for some reason, when I watch Lost Galaxy, I find more harm in it. Not harm, but just aspects of it I just was not the biggest fan of. Like, I honestly didn't really care for the cast that much. Um, Maybe one or two characters here or there, but I didn't really care for the cast too much. Like the series lost me, Stuart, when Leo's horse got an upgrade. Like when I see Leo transform and then his horse gets a battleizer, like he's fucking He-Man and Battle Cat or some shit, but battle horse. I was like, what is happening on this show right now? It really kind of just turned me off, and I just felt like I just started finding more and more ridiculous things in this season that I wasn't the biggest fan of, despite the fact that I love the Corone and Kendrick storyline, the Alpha 5 Astro Mega Ship connections, the crossover events. This was just a really love-hate series for me when it comes to Lost Galaxy, despite the fact that I know a lot of people love this show. But what do you think about Power Rangers Legacy's comments in regards to Lost Galaxy? Can you relate?
Well, Lost Galaxies was the very first Power Ranger season that I actually kept up with, like, episode by episode. So I have, huge nostalgic memories of it. The that's a funny comment. Oh, oh yeah. So basically, because like as a kid, I loved Star Wars. Star Wars, of course, was like my favorite movie, and I really wanted to get into Star Trek because I was really in love with
Mm,
sci-fi. But unfortunately, when it came to Star Trek: The Next Generation, I would watch it, but it would catch me, but then lose me at times because I just didn't have the attention span or the intelligence as a little kid to really appreciate Star Trek: The Next Generation for what it was. Lost Galaxy was like perfect because it was like
mm.
everything I liked about Star Trek The Next Generation, but only like, in very small portions, and then it had plenty of action to keep my attention for everything else. As for whether or not it holds up, I did rewatch it during COVID. Like that was one of the many seasons I was rewatching, and I do think there are a lot of things that do hold up about them. I think some of the story at times could be very disorienting or disorganized, I guess would be the best way to put it. Like it felt like they were kind of like changing their mind about certain aspects as they were going along at times. But there are some really great standalone episodes that I think were just absolutely amazing. And I think it does have one of my all-time favorite episodes in all of Power Rangers, which is, of course, the alien style episode, the complete filler episode where you don't even have Power Rangers in it until like the last minute. Instead, you have like, I'm still amazed to this day that they were allowed to air this on a kids network. The fact that you had
Yeah.
like essentially a horror movie for 20 minutes until the last like 2 minutes of the episode. And you had some great dialogue too. Like one of my favorite lines is when there's like same episode actually, when they come across that ship and there's an anomaly, and one of the guys is like, oh it's not like we're required to there's no rule saying we have to help out other ships in need. And then one guy kind of says, yeah, there's no rule about it, but that's because that goes without saying that we help those out there. Great written dialogue like that. I also think like the show was incredibly well filmed. Like looking back on it now, it doesn't look like, if you were to watch certain scenes of it like out of context, it doesn't look like a low budget show that was made to sell toys. It straight up looks like a sci-fi show that wasn't like necessarily aimed at kids. Obviously, then you see them as Power Rangers, and that changes, of course. But when you see like them just like on the space station, you see a lot of the really awesome like uniforms that some of the characters are wearing. It's, I don't know, there are just so many aspects about it that I think looked incredibly well at the time and still like kind of hold up. Special effects, not so much. When they use some CG effects, not the best.
Yeah, maybe it's a show I definitely need to rewatch. For me, it's been so long since I wound up watching Lost Galaxy. Like I remember watching Lost Galaxy as part of a binge, to catch up to Power Rangers, so I can get back into the more modern era of Power Rangers. And so, it's been what, like 10 years, maybe 10 years plus since I
Wow.
revisited Lost Galaxy, right? So it's been quite some time. So everybody's busting on me in the chat though. AJ's like, really, Adam? That was literally one episode. Marcelino says Lost Galaxy is He-Man, and Adam finds it weird, but that's just Power Rangers. He says Beast Morphers and Dino Fury had weirder stuff, and Adam finds Lost Galaxy weird. Yeah,
I would disagree with comparing it to He-Man. I'd say it's more like King Arthur, because they get their swords literally from a stone.
From the stone, yeah. He says you don't like horses. No, I like horse. I mean, I am a little intimidated by horses. I've never rode a horse, believe it or not, living in Texas. But horses are cool, I guess. Zeta rode a dinosaur in episode 1 of Dino Fury, and I'm like, yep, perfectly cool with it, man. Perfectly cool with but look, I'm not even gonna try and defend that. But yeah, if anything, maybe it is a season that I should certainly give a rewatch to, because there were definitely elements to it that I was a fan of, but sometimes I was just turned off by things.
I remember hearing about this. Yeah, they had like the biggest, but Lost Galaxy had the biggest budget because they scrapped Mystic Knights of Tirnanog and gave the budget that was going to that season to Power Rangers Lost Galaxy.
Oh yeah, I see images of like that old school Mystic Knights of whatever on Google from time to time. So yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that was actually like they were actually trying to make that a show, turn that into something. So that's cool that they utilized that budget elsewhere.
Yeah.
But all right, guys, I think that will wrap it up for us. So our live viewer question video we dropped this week will begin with Jack Daniels and work our way all the way up to Timothy Clark. So thank you guys for everybody for all your questions. We will get to everybody. So thank you very much for your participation this week. But yeah, guys, remember, if you want to follow us on social media, you can certainly do so. We're very active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, you can follow us on Spotify as well. There is a link in the comment section box below if you would prefer an audio or to listen to this on the go. And if you're watching us over on Facebook, feel free to show us some support with some stars, if you will. Send some stars our way to definitely help us monetize our channels a little bit more. But yeah, guys, we're working really hard to continue to bring great content your guys' way. But I think that's going to wrap it up here for today's episode. So thank you, everybody, for certainly joining us. We will be back next weekend. And believe it or not, Stuart, I think we might have some additional co-hosts next weekend to look forward to. Yeah, I've been speaking with another podcast out there, another YouTube channel by the name of Scene and Nerd. I think you've probably seen us. Yeah, I think you've probably seen us um, promoting some of their stuff on our IG page, along with Twitter as well, kind of promoting their podcast also. It's Will Polk and Sarah Belmont, co-hosts of that show. I think they're actually open to joining us next Sunday. So we might have some company next week and some other perspectives and point of views to pick their brains, Stuart. So hopefully you're here to join us next weekend, next Sunday also. But it should be an interesting show, man. We've never really collaborated like that with many people. You know what I mean? One
Yeah.
podcast to another.
Almost got which just things didn't work out scheduling conflict wise, but hopefully at some point if we can do another video. But I almost got Lance to appear on our show at one point, so hopefully again sometime soon.
But yeah, guys, so definitely join us next weekend as we have a ton of other great content and topics to certainly talk about, and who knows what stories we'll definitely have for you guys. But Stuart, if people want to go ahead and reach you on social media, where can they find you, sir?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Turbos201.
And again, guys, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so right up here at the top at A Plus Opinions. Very active over on our main page, which is our Facebook page. Check us out there, and feel free to follow us on Instagram as well as Twitter. But until then, guys, do us a big favor. As always, we'll certainly see you guys next weekend. But in the meantime, do me a big favor. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A plus. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.